Yeah, it's Halloween, but
I'm so excited.
But not for us. It's just Friday.
Yeah, but it's almost Halloween.
And it's not Halloween for you either because this is Tuesday. You can always just like say, well, I'm going to save this show for Halloween and watch it then, or you can watch it now and just go and then watch it again on Halloween.
That's a very good idea. I like that idea.
But you do what you want. It's on you.
Honestly, I think the whole month of October should be
all
Halloween. It should be a month-long holiday, I think. It's clearly the best holiday ever.
Yeah, Halloween is Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, Christmas is cool, too. Thanksgiving's cool, too, because you get to, like, eat as much as you want and no one judges.
For me, Halloween feels like about like a week.
It should be.
Yeah, it's like a week long.
It should be like Hanukkah, but Halloween.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Halloween, Hanukkah. Should be 8 days long.
Yeah.
I think it should be a whole month long, but you know what I mean. Okay, so what we're doing for the Halloween special, we don't even fucking know what we're doing for the Halloween special.
No, we got a show planned, and it's going to
sort of
take us a couple days to make this because we're not going to do it all at once. We're going to do it tomorrow night, too. So
yeah, we're going to do this like in bits and pieces.
Right.
So if you see like costume changes,
right.
Well, not costume because I'm just being me, right now.
Yeah,
but
you're going to see us wearing different clothes probably.
Well, I specifically wanted to wear this shirt because I made it, and like I just got it today in the mail.
Really cool shirt.
This is my Mantle Brothers.
Is that for sale?
Not yet. I wanted to see how it came out before I got it.
I think it came out good. That's going to be on Zazzle?
Yeah.
Okay, tell them what it is.
This is Mantle Brothers Fertility Clinic.
Yeah.
If you can't see, it might be too small. I'm not sure if you can all lean my tits really cool. Like really close into the camera.
Put them fucking titties up there. Remember Dead Ringers? It's from Dead Ringers.
It's from Dead Ringers. If you guys are David Cronenberg fans, which is actually probably my favorite Cronenberg movie. I know that's kind of blasphemous in a world where Videodrome exists. But at the bottom here, it says, specializing in mutant women.
Yeah.
Which you guys have seen this. You'll get that.
You're right.
But yeah, I'm making like a whole series of like horror themed t-shirts. I'm kind of doing them slowly. But this was like the first one I thought of, and I was like, I'm making that because I want that shit.
Yeah.
So I made one and I, put it on Zazzle and I ordered it and I said, okay, well if it comes out cool, then I'll put it up for sale on the store, on the Zazzle store. Speaking of the Zazzle store, somebody in the YouTube comments asked me, they're like, oh, well, can we get like long sleeved or hoodies or something like that? And I was like, oh, I'll make those specifically. But then I went to the Zazzle store and I'm like, oh, I'm a dumbass, because when you go to Zazzle and you pick the design that you want or the t-shirt that you want, you can actually pick male, female, long sleeved, hoodie, anything like that. Because when I put the designs, like when I uploaded the designs, I said just put it on anything black.
Okay.
So anything that's black or dark colored, whether it's long sleeved, whether it's male or female,
they can select that.
Yeah, it's like Zazzle doesn't have like the easiest interface I have found, like either for uploading things or for buying things. But I was able to determine that all of the designs I think that I've put up so far, you do have the option to buy them as a long sleeve shirt or as a hoodie or as a male cut or a female cut or whatever. So I didn't have to do them specific. Like I did one specifically and then I was just kind of like, oh, I guess I didn't have to do that because I could have just gone down to the thing. But like I said, it's not super clear that you could do that.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. But so I'm saying to the person that asked that in YouTube, you can actually go there and pick the design you want and you can get it in pretty much whatever thing you want. Like I think I just put it on like all dark clothing. Because what I designed them for dark clothing and not for light.
Another thing we got to mention is we got to mention the new computer.
Oh my gosh, I have so many thank yous this week.
Right.
Okay.
Do you have everybody's name written down?
Okay. Now the first thank you I want to do, like I'm trying to do these like kind of in order. I want to thank Lindsey for the PayPal donation. Thank you very much. That is much appreciated. I think we mentioned this on our matinee show from a couple days ago, but our friend Tara made a little Santa hat for Dennis back here.
All right.
That'll be his holiday get up as well as his Halloween costume. He's dressed up.
Yeah, he's dressed as Santa, I guess.
Well,
or an elf. He's dressed as an elf.
I was thinking about this because I was like, well, that could be his Halloween costume too, because like that guy that we know that goes to iBar, that goes to I think his name's John, and he dresses for whatever reason he dresses up as Santa Claus like every Halloween.
Yeah.
So like every Halloween event, he just turns up in his Santa suit.
Yeah, just a hat. Yeah.
No, he had like the red suit on,
He had
too.
the red suit on? Okay.
Well, it was kind of like it was kind of a Santa suit. It wasn't like the full on.
I just remembered the damn...
Maybe it was the top.
Hat.
I didn't see his bottom half because he was sitting behind the bar. We saw him at Memento Mori. He was you were supposed to come in costume, and he was like dressed up like Santa Claus. I'm like, oh, that's probably the only costume he owns. Yeah. But yeah, so I figured Dennis can be Santa Claus for Halloween, and he can also be Santa Claus for Christmas. You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so our friend Tara made that, and I was like fucking cracking up when I got
Dennis
that package.
loves it. Dennis loves it.
He really does. It keeps his little bald head warm.
Yeah.
And also, holy crap, humongous thank you to Ben, who sent me a computer.
Yeah.
He sent me a computer.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Because remember I like bitched that I needed a new one because the one that I have a Mac laptop, which this is right here that you're seeing. And I have a PC that I do other various things on. The PC was very old.
Now.
And and he sent
there he is.
Me a computer.
Yep, we just have to get the stuff out of the dinosaur and get that into Dropbox.
And get it, it's just I have to like transfer the shit over.
And then we'll set this one up, and big thanks. This is
holy crap! I'm just like I could cry seriously.
It's gonna be awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, came with got
a new mouse, got a new keyboard, which is good because seriously, I eat in my office too, so my keyboard and mouse are super disgusting.
And the dinosaur. The dinosaur is actually going to become a video game.
Yeah, because Tom here likes to play.
I like playing Dune Emperor. It's kind of like
Which
Red
is
Alert.
a very old game.
And that's the only thing that plays.
Yeah, it doesn't work on the newer shit.
And there's supposed to be a way to where you can like do cheats and shit, but I'm going to take that. I'm going to break that down, get a different modern. I'm going to put that in an arcade cabinet and make one of those like a bar top arcade cabinet.
Yeah, we're very excited
with a Dune theme on the key on the damn. You know what I mean? The kiosk.
I'll make you a cabinet. I'll make you the cabinet graphics.
The graphics, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a company that sells for like about $100-something a kit of just all the wood you need.
Yeah.
And then you can break that down, take some of that stuff and a couple of the CD-ROMs, and I'll put that in there, and you can put speakers in the top of it, and it'll just you plug it in and just play Dune.
Yeah.
And then, could probably... I don't know if it'll take Red Alert. I don't care about any other game but Dune. For some reason...
Seriously, you guys, I have, the audio from Dune...
Yeah.
Just seared into my...
I love Dune.
...brain. Because he played it so much.
Yeah.
Like, when he had his old laptop...
I sat there and played Dune Emperor.
They would still play it. He would play it for, hours and hours.
Yeah, I could get lost in Dune. And it's not all that complicated, really. It's just a good game. I like it.
It reminded me... You know what game it reminded me of? If you guys remember, if you guys are old like we are, I remembered this old game called Populous. Do you remember that game? Where it was like a thing where you would, you could pick whatever terrain you wanted. Like it was forest or it was desert or it was fucking volcanic lava or whatever the fuck you wanted. And you could build a whole civilization on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For young,
so it was a similar type of thing.
Yeah, but you're fighting. For younger generation would know the game as Command and Conquer. But it's better than Command and Conquer. There's 3 or 4 Command and Conquers. I like those too. But Dune was better.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was that same basic concept.
Yeah, they're all pretty much this. Yeah. It's kind of like you see things from a bird's eye view, and then
you're building cities.
You're building a city, and then you're fighting against shit that.
Yeah, but there's an economy. You got to harvest spice, and then you got to make.
Yeah, that's what reminds me of.
And
Populous.
you got to make alliances, and then there's cutscenes with video and stuff in there of the Harkonnens, and you could play as
the dudes that were in the movie.
Yeah, or House Atreides, and it just. That game came from the 90s, but it still stands the test of time. That damn Dune Emperor.
He's super. He has a really good time.
I love that one. They have not made, and it's the Dino De Laurentiis style Dune.
Yeah.
And they have not made a Dune game in forever. I guess the property is in limbo.
Well, like I said, like you said, I'm not sure what the issue is with the rights, and it's because I heard that they were making a series of it.
Yeah.
Last I heard, they were at least talking about it, or it was in the early stages of production or something like that. Because remember, we always talked about how they should make a fucking series out of it.
Well, they need to make a new video game. It's got to be something based on the old Dune games.
Well, I'm just saying that if they do a new series, then it's much more likely that they will do it like a tie-in type of video game, I would think. Yeah, because That definitely needs to be a series. I don't know. The David Lynch movie was like cool.
Oh, what's his name though? The guy who did Blade Runner's making a new Dune movie. You didn't know that?
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, that's all. They've already.
Who?
They're
Denis Villeneuve or whatever.
Yeah, the foreign guy who made
the French guy.
Yeah, the French guy.
Yeah.
He's doing Dune right now, but it's a movie.
Oh, I did hear about that.
Yeah,
I did hear about that.
It's not that far away. Maybe 6 months to a year, from what I understand. I mean, it's
okay. That might be badass.
Yeah.
Because I liked all that. I liked all that dude's other movies.
Yeah, and you can't do that in one movie. It's probably gonna be a trilogy.
Well, yeah, like I said,
like
that
Gina,
needs to be a series, or it needs to be expanded. It can't just be like 2 hours.
It's gonna be just like if you try to cram that into one movie, it's gonna go just the way it went with the Dino De Laurentiis movie, where it's
gonna go the way it went with like Dark Tower.
Yeah, where they're making proclamations and shit instead of giving scenes and a bunch of voiceovers and stuff. Even though I love that movie.
I kind of like it too, even though it's weird and it doesn't make a lick of sense. But
it is. Yeah, as imperfect as that movie is, it still had like some of the best.
It
costumes.
has something to it. There's
costumes.
something. Yeah, there's like the whole vibe of it.
Yeah.
Even though, like I said,
sets.
I read the book, but it was like when I was a teenager, so I don't really remember that much about it. So like now, whenever I see the movie, I'm just like, this is so cool, but I have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And I'm usually good at that kind of shit.
Well, trying to make Dune into a movie.
Yeah, see, that's just dumb. It's like
trying to take the Book of Genesis and make that whole thing into a movie.
It is exactly like that.
You can't do that. There's just too many damn stories in there.
It might be slightly easier because at least Dune was written by a single author, whereas Genesis was written by a whole bunch of different people, and there's like all kind of contradictory shit in there. But it's like, I get what you're saying, though. It's like a similar challenge.
Well, Genesis has creation in there. It's got Cain and Abel. It's got Noah in there. And it's got Joseph. You know what I'm talking about?
Why
the story of Joseph.
A series out of that?
That's all in fucking...
Darren Aronofsky, get on that.
Yeah. So, if you were to try to do Genesis, the book of Genesis, that's like 7 movies.
Yeah, that would be a series. I think that would be a good. I would watch that. Like I said, if someone like Darren Aronofsky made it, like some weirdo made it that was like an atheist or something. If you guys haven't seen that
movie Noah, you need to see that shit. That shit was badass.
I really liked it.
And like I'm not one dude that's into Bible movies. They're usually hokey.
Well, yeah, that's why you need somebody that's like a non-believer to make that.
Right. This is, but the thing is it sticks to what.
Yeah, Genesis, he sticks exactly to the story.
And what some of some of the extra canonical versions of it. I think what was it, Maccabees? I think it was some of that stuff came from Maccabees, which are not in the Old Testament.
Yeah, some of it is like apocryphal
stuff.
Yeah,
and you take the story of Noah, and you mash everything that was known about that, and you make a movie into it, and that's a wild ass story about beings from the heavens that were embedded into the earth.
Yeah.
And then, how cities had risen up to destroy the earth. What did they call them? They called them Nephilim.
Yeah.
The Nephilim were actually kind of more like technology and cities, and that was destroying the earth. And then God decided to destroy the earth, and it shows the waters of the heaven and the waters of the earth, because that's what it says. It shows the waters of the heavens opening up and the waters of the earth to swallow it, which is some weird shit. So in other words, water came out of the earth.
Yeah.
It says it in Genesis, and they show all that.
Like
it's basically like Mad Max and Lord of the Rings, being kind of like. And that's what they're talking about. But like I said,
if you made a literal Bible movie, that's exactly what it would look like. Because there's some crazy shit in there.
Yeah, and they had technology. It wasn't real high technology, but from what I remember, they had some cannons in there, and they had armor, and it was and I guess steam power. Remember how they had something that looked like machines in the cities?
Yeah, that's right.
And black smoke coming out of there, like they were drilling for oil and stuff. It was awesome.
Steampunk Bible.
Yeah.
Has anybody done that? Ooh, that might be interesting.
It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. Kind of like a Lord of the Rings story.
It did remind me of it.
That's what those stories were. That's what they were intended.
Yeah.
They were mythos.
Yeah, I mean, where do you think the fantasy
Legendary
genre
shit.
came from, man? It's like, you know what I mean? They took all their cues from that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Folklore.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Legendary people and shit. Legendary ancestors of the Israelites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more shout out I had to have. This was just a person that asked for a shout out. So I was like, okay, why not? I said, but it was a while back, but I was like, well, we already recorded this one show. So I said, well, I'll give you a shout out on the Halloween show. This is Mir Amini. And it's like, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, because they very thoughtfully gave me the pronunciation of their name, because otherwise I would butcher their pronunciation.
Who is it?
Mir Amini.
Amini? Where was that name from?
I don't know.
Arabic?
I don't know.
Okay.
But they asked for a shout out on the show.
All right, there you go.
So there you go. I just shouted you out on the show. Now, like I said on this is our Halloween special. This is mostly for the fans. So, it's like, so it's not going to be like...
It's not a normal episode.
Not going to be like a normal episode. It's going to be very ramshackle. Yeah. I probably have to admit. Like I said, we got some cool submissions of like stories and stuff. So I'm going to read those at various points. I also have like, history of Halloween, urban legend, shit like that. Like I said, I even have some horror movie recommendations, so I might get into that as well. But I really don't have like a super like big plan about it, how any of this is going to go. It's just going to depend on how much drinking we do, like when we get tired and we have to stop and like record again tomorrow. And it's like, you know what I mean?
It's gonna be a good show, though.
It's gonna be very like amorphous.
It's gonna be a good show.
So, it's like I said, it's not gonna be like our regular. Well, I say it's not gonna be
the last Halloween show. I ended up singing in it. Remember?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I was singing in it.
Well, didn't we had
I talked about the legend.
We had Shana and Eric here, didn't we, for the last Halloween show, or was that the one before?
I can't remember. I was singing. I was dressed up and I was singing songs about legendary Southerners.
I don't have much memory of that at all.
The Elvis impersonators.
Oh no! Right. Because we were talking about Orion, right?
Orion.
That's
Orion, right. That was the risen spirit of Elvis.
That was. Do you remember? And this was probably going back at least a year or two. We did a video about the Orion documentary and the Anvil documentary. Yeah. But I think I only put it on Patreon. I should put that in the regular stream because it's been like at least a couple of years.
Yeah,
since
put that shit in there. Put that in. Put it in there as a special.
It was pretty funny, I thought. Yeah. I don't even think the Orion documentaries of where the fuck is that? I think we saw it on Netflix. I don't even think it's on there anymore.
Yeah. If you guys don't know who Orion was, it was a guy who sounded exactly like Elvis. Mm-hmm. And was he from Mississippi or Alabama?
Somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was Mississippi. He sounds just like Elvis. He didn't really look like Elvis.
Well, a little bit.
But he did a little bit. He looked like he maybe could be related to Elvis. And that was the legend. Mm-hmm. Is that he was somehow kin to Elvis.
Yeah, like he was like a bastard child or something. Which my parents' generation, like my dad's generation in Mississippi, there was a big confusion between Elvis and Jesus. Yeah.
I
can see how that might happen.
Yeah, there was, because they believed that Elvis could stop it from raining.
I love
you'd
this.
have like a picture of Elvis, you hit a picture of Jesus on one side of the mantle and then a picture of Elvis on the other.
Did you
but
pray
you looked
to
at them,
Elvis,
they looked alike.
Did you pray to Elvis for specific things that you would not pray to Jesus for?
Probably booty. I didn't believe in any of this.
No, that's what I mean. I'm curious.
When I was a young kid, I'm talking about like 10, 11, 12, when I'd go to Mississippi for the summers, all right, from California. Even back then, it was kind of like an alien culture. And the Mississippi of today was nothing like the Mississippi of the 70s that I remember from that era.
Yeah.
Yeah, it had advanced a lot, it's changed a lot. Internet and cable TV changed the South a lot.
Yeah, okay? I can see that.
This was pre-cable.
Yeah.
They only knew things that were local. And there wasn't much local. So I can understand how you had programs like Beverly Hillbillies, even though they weren't from Mississippi. But, where people from California and New York might make fun of people.
Me and my grandma used to watch.
Yeah, they might make fun of people from areas like Mississippi because there was such a vast difference.
Yeah.
it was just weird. You didn't get me talking about all this, but I would go into people's houses that were, my relatives or friends of relatives or friends, and they would have things in the house that would mystify me even at the age of like 11, 12. I was like, what the fuck? What is that? Which you might have. And, when you're a young kid, you're trying to make sense out of the world. And
yeah, good luck with that.
And I'm looking up on the mantle, and they'll have a picture of Jesus next to a picture of Elvis. And they look like the same guy. The difference is that the Jesus has a beard on it. Okay? So, and there's different clothing. But that Jesus might be in an Elvis-style position. And then you have, like a pose in there. And then you look at the Elvis, and he's in Elvis clothes, but he's in a Jesus-like setting where there's like, he's like looking up, and there's like light rays coming down. Yeah, with like clouds and shit. And so I was kind of sucked into the confusion between Elvis and Jesus.
Sure.
And you talk to kids of your own age, and who's that? That's Elvis. And then they'll tell you stuff, and they're confused between Elvis and Jesus, as if there's a relation between the two. That's how hardcore redneckism was back then.
I got that. That's pretty hardcore.
But we're talking about Laurel, Mississippi, and that surrounding area, and Tupelo's about an hour and a half, I think, from there. But it was a similar setting. Tupelo's a little bitty place. So in Mississippi, around the places where Elvis came from, Elvis was a demigod. Yeah, basically.
Well, do you know? I'm not sure if you know this or not. But Nick Cave, on his 1984 album, I believe, The Firstborn is Dead, he actually wrote a song called Tupelo. Yeah. And it was talking about the same thing that you were talking about, where it was making comparisons between Elvis and Jesus.
Yeah, well, that was...
basically the theme of the whole album, not exactly, because there was some other... It's a very bluesy album, but it's like The Firstborn is Dead was talking about Elvis's twin brother who died at birth. But he was making comparisons to the Jesus mythology. That area, so he knew about that shit even though he's Australian.
That time and area of coming up in Mississippi in the 70s and the 80s, it was a very religious time in Mississippi, and Elvis was a part of the religious pantheon of the South, really. I mean, it was legend, but so was Jesus.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
So it's like,
you're talking about the same thing.
I mean, Elvis is cooler, I think.
Well, and then Orion showed up, that's later. That's after the death of Elvis. I almost said Jesus. Okay, after the death of Elvis.
Well, it was after the death of Jesus, too.
I'm still kind of stuck in my, that there's that genetic racial pull to think that maybe Jesus and Elvis were the same thing. But anyway, Orion was like the second coming of Elvis.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of exactly what he was.
And if you watch that documentary...
And that's how a lot of his fans saw him as well.
If you look at that documentary, what was it called? Orion, the man who would be... What was it?
The Man Who Would Be King, I think.
The Man Who Would Be King. You watch that documentary, and you can see how that confusion and that fantasy continued on. That not only could Jesus come back, but Elvis could come back. And that this is him, and that there might be some kind of a connection between Orion and Elvis. And they just fucking played that shit over the top about resurrection themes on those albums.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and he wore a mask.
So no one saw his actual face.
No one actually saw what he looked like. And with the mask on, he did kind of look like Elvis. He sounded exactly like Elvis. And
not even like, oh, I'm doing an Elvis impression. No, he sounded exactly like Elvis.
Yeah. It was creepy. And he was an excellent singer, Orion.
Yeah.
And they were all original works. And it sounded like something that Elvis would sing.
In a way, it's like he seemed like later on that he got kind of bummed out because he was kind of like, well, he was a really good singer and he was a really good songwriter, but it's like, well, because he sounded so much like Elvis, that's pretty much all he could do was be like an Elvis.
Like,
I'm the second coming of Elvis, because he couldn't be his own singer because he sounded exactly like Elvis.
Yeah, and as soon as they took that mask off of him, though, that was kind of pretty much his career started to dwindle.
That was like Kiss taking their makeup off.
Yeah, but then they had fans, Southern fans of his, women mostly, so infatuated with this concept that they were trying to get his DNA and match it with Elvis' DNA to finally prove that they were related.
Yeah.
They weren't related, though.
No, that was like the documentary, spoiler alert, but like the documentary, he was trying to find out like if he was actually, because
they weren't any more related than I'm related to him.
Yeah. I mean, it's not crazy to think that. I mean, Elvis might have like banged a fan somewhere at some point in the past, and she might have got pregnant. It's not a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turned out that they weren't.
That part of Mississippi, that look is common from that time. There's a lot of people that look like Elvis.
Yeah.
Those are common features. It's all that same stock, basically.
So they're all inbred, is what you're saying?
No.
No, I'm just teasing.
It's all that same stock. Well, there's always been a question about what race was Elvis. Elvis always kind of came across as that maybe he was something very exotic. His mother was Jewish, but there's some confusion about that too, because a lot of Mississippi Christians were Jewish, which this is some weird shit. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? There were a lot of Christian cults in Mississippi. Some of them believed that you could not be a Christian without being a Jew first.
I can see how that would happen.
So what you did is that you converted to Judaism, and from Judaism you became a Christian.
Well, because Jews are like the OG Christians.
Exactly.
They were there before the Christians were.
So there were small Christian cults that had the Star of David and the cross.
Okay.
But it was a type of Baptist, which that throws a whole nother fucking spin on it. Because
that is very weird.
They were, So
I can see where they're coming from. But it's weird.
The story of Jewish of Elvis's mother being Jewish is a Mississippi legend. What they're probably talking about, and it was back in the 1800s when some of the Mississippi Christians were also Jewish, but it didn't have anything to do with race. It was just religious affiliation. So she probably had nothing to do with any other races. They were just regular white people.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's another thing about being some kind of a mixture of like black Irish or weird Irish, where it's, when you say black Irish, it's not African, but it's kind of like a Indian and Irish or something like that. All right. But probably not. He was just a regular old white guy from Tupelo.
Yeah.
He stood out. So a lot of people thought there must be something different about him because he was so fucking famous. You know what I mean? So they had to make up some kind of...
it's myth making is what it is.
So there has to be some kind of a different ethnic origin to him. But knowing the way Mississippi people are and coming up in that area, no. He was just a regular white guy.
Well, like I said, it's kind of like a whole thing where when someone gets famous enough, like people start attributing all kind of like, because this person must be special in some way, whatever way that is, whether it's like, there's some exotic, they're from exotic place, or they're fucking, or there's some like other amazing thing about them.
Yeah, well, Elvis knew that he had pictures of his mom and little things like little Star of David's associated with his mom and that side of the family. But that's 1800s, and back in the 1800s and all up until the late 1800s, there were some Mississippi Baptist cults that had Judaism symbols in them. That's what they're talking about.
Like I said, I can almost I can almost see that more than like the separation between the two religions, because they're very similar. It's like I don't.
Well, in certain fundamentalist thinking, how the hell can you be a Christian if you're not a Jew?
That's what I'm saying.
So that's
what I can almost, but like I'm not religious at all, but that makes more sense to me.
Because Christianity is a Jewish sect.
It is. That's what I mean. It's an offshoot.
So there were preachers running around in the South that part of their gimmick is that what
Yeah,
makes
we're like,
me
we're
different?
going back
I'm
to
gonna
like
give
the
you
foundations.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a
Sure.
real Christian priest, and I have a real church, which means that you have to be a Jew.
Right.
And then from
That makes total sense to me.
once you're a Jew, then you convert to Christianity.
Yeah.
So you can become a real Christian, and then accept baptism, so you can be a Southern Baptist. All right, that's just the thinking. That's the thinking. But his mother was probably Southern Baptist, old school Southern Baptist,
That had that whole,
which makes a lot more sense than this tale of.
But see, the whole thing about Orion though is like, didn't that come about because of that novel about the guy that was like an Elvis impersonator, or the Elvis Reborn or something like that, and that was his name, Orion, and that's where they got the name from?
I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
But
I think they talked about that in the documentary. Somewhere.
Orion was like the last gasp of the southern southern woman's
Elvis
hope
cult.
that Elvis would return.
That he was still alive.
That he was still alive. No, they knew that wasn't him.
Yeah.
They thought that based on
that he was like reincarnated.
Yeah, based on the icons on the backs of the albums and the lyrics, they thought that maybe it was the spirit of Elvis had being channeled through this guy, or had returned from the grave somehow.
There was a lot of that going on.
And that it was like a reincarnation, because the ages didn't quite match up too. I don't think Orion was quite
old enough
young,
to be
right,
yeah,
young
yeah,
enough, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
He wasn't quite young enough. I think he lived alongside Elvis for a little while.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah. So it was a spiritual thing, and it was
because Elvis died in what, 1977, right?
Yeah, and he was alive by that. I think.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
The guy
because he's obviously older than me, and I was born in 1972. So
I can remember the magical thinking of Mississippi of the 70s and the 80s. Don't question the shit, okay?
Well, yeah, that's
you're questioning it. You're dealing with it. You're dealing with a spiritual people. That's how they would describe it. Okay, where wanting something bad enough might make it real.
Makes it happen, sure.
Might make it real.
I get that.
Yeah,
I get that.
And that's the games that Southerners played.
Man, we went off on this whole fucking Elvis tangent.
It's a good story, though.
It is, though. I like, I like that kind of thing.
And you know that he's got songs on YouTube. You can. And he's singing gospel and all kinds of shit. He did a little bit of rock and roll, but it was mostly gospel.
And like you said, he did his own. He didn't do just like Elvis covers. He did like
covers.
Original songs.
He did originals, yeah.
But
that sounds like fucking
Elvis.
Like Elvis. Sounds just like him.
But you know, in a way, I felt bad for him. But
what was funny is that he sounded like Elvis naturally.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I felt bad for him, because it wasn't like, oh, I'm trying to be an impersonator.
Yeah. No, people that went to school with him said that he sang great and that he sounded like Elvis back then.
Yeah.
And he wasn't trying. It was just a genetic marker, probably just from that area.
Maybe like
something about that voice.
Inbreeding.
Yeah. It's not inbreeding.
I'm just teasing.
Mississippi had a fucking huge. Mississippi had a big breeding population for the population density, and it also black people were involved. That's another thing.
Well, I know that.
Yeah. Right.
Right. I know for sure, like a lot of
there
shit.
There were people in my family that
history.
look a little bit black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine too.
Right. So.
Well, like I said, there was a lot more mixture of the races
than people think.
Than people imagine back in the old days. Because, like I said, it's like, what are you gonna do, man? It's like fucking, you're out on the frontier.
Right.
Not a lot of people around. Not a lot of women around. What are you gonna say no? Because she's a little bit paler than you, or she's a little bit like more coffee colored than you.
Segregation happened after slavery. That's very modern in a way. Segregation was modern. There was stuff going on in the 1700s, 1617, and 1800s. It was going on that people, people were marrying each other.
Yeah.
Black people and white people were marrying each other back then. It's just that it's forgotten about.
Yeah, I feel like it was like okay for a while, and then suddenly everybody got like their panties in a bunch.
Yeah, it was later. That was much later.
Which is weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's seriously, that's what happened.
Especially in the New Orleans area.
Yeah.
Which is close to Mississippi, so
Yeah, it's
all
all
on the
kind
coast. It's all about that same
all
thing.
All of a piece. Sure. All right, so what should we do first? Should we talk about Halloween history? Should we give horror movie recommendations? What should we do? I don't know what order you want to do this shit in.
Do what you want.
Oh, that's not the answer that I wanted.
Okay, what was it again? What's the choices?
I said, we have reader stories that I want to do. But I also have history of Halloween that I would like to kind of get into that a little bit. Also I have a shit ton of horror movie recommendations.
Let's do the horror movie recommendations.
You want to do that first?
Yeah.
All right, because we were kind of talking about movies and stuff. What I did earlier, now because we have the retrospective show and because we have the matinee show, which is usually really new stuff, and then the retrospective's usually older stuff. So I wanted to kind of do recommendations that were in between that. Maybe movies that came out in the last 5 to 10 years that were on various streaming services, and that maybe people be going through the streaming services and would be oh, well, I want something good to watch. So I wrote down a whole shit ton of ones that I wanted to talk about. It's I don't have to talk about them at length or anything like that. I don't want to spoil them for anybody, but I did write down a whole big list for Shudder, for Netflix, and for Tubi, which is free. So if you want to watch any of these, don't yell at me if you didn't like them. I liked them, so that's why I'm recommending them. If I didn't like them, I didn't recommend them. But so I just wanted to kind of get into that. Now let me get my little notebook is down here where I wrote down all my recommendations. As you can see, I wrote down all these recommendations here. So we're going to talk about a few recommendations for horror movies. Pardon me. If you need some horror movies to watch for Halloween, like I said, don't yell at me if you don't like it, because I liked these and I thought they were kick-ass. So do you want to do Shudder first?
Yeah.
All right, let's do Shudder first. Now, the first one I'm going to recommend on Shudder, they actually only put this up a couple weeks ago, and I'd been wanting to see this for a long time because a lot of people recommended it to me. The Taking of Deborah Logan. Now, this is found footage, and I know all of your eyes are rolling at the moment. My eyes were rolling also. I do not like found footage generally. However, this one is kick-ass. It's really good. It's basically about a team that's making a documentary about Alzheimer's, and they're living in the house with this woman who has Alzheimer's, and she starts getting doing weirder and weirder shit, and you don't know if it's Alzheimer's or if she's possessed by a demon or what. So it's it's a really good, there's a reason for them to be filming stuff. It's the main character that's in it, the woman that plays Deborah Logan. She is apparently she's an older woman, and she was on some soap operas back in the day. So she's kind of a well-known soap opera actress. She is amazing in this as somebody that has Alzheimer's disease. She knows she has it, but it's she has these spells where it's she doesn't remember shit. But so you don't know if it's possession or Alzheimer's, and it's shit just gets weirder and weirder, and there's just hints that there's paranormal kind of shit going on. And it's not so much, it's not demon possession exactly. I don't want to spoil it or anything. And I will say one of the last images in this, and if you've seen it, you probably know what I'm talking about. One of the last images of this that they captured on film of her just attacking one of her victims. That's how I'm going to say it. I was going to use one word, but I won't use another word because it'll give away. But it looks really good. This was this movie creeped me the fuck out. Seriously. And it's really good. Like I said, I don't like found footage. So this is a good one. So that is on Shudder. They just added it a couple weeks ago. Also, and I think I've mentioned this one before, probably, haven't I? The Love Witch.
I don't think you mentioned that.
I think I mentioned it on some other show, but it was probably a throwaway. Okay. This is fucking cool. If you like giallo movies and you really like the aesthetic of old 1960s kind of the movie, it's weird because it's it's set in the modern day, but the whole kind of gestalt of it is all old 60s shit. Everybody's wearing 60s stuff, and it's the whole, like, the design of the apartments and everything's very 60s. It's just, like, it's so beautiful to look at. It's not straight up a horror movie. Yes, it's about a witch, and she's trying to, like, find someone that will love her. So she's, like, giving people all these, like, love potions and stuff, and it's going wrong every single time. Mm. So it's almost kind of like, I don't know, it's really weird. It's like a giallo movie, but not. Like, it's not a murder mystery. It's more like a witch story. Like, old school potions and stuff like that. But just, like, the aesthetic of it is amazing. Like, I'm just sitting there watching it going, how the, like, just all the costumes and, like, all the fucking sets and everything like that. It looks incredible. So if you're really into, like, 60s horror or giallo movies, you definitely need to check that one out, because that is fucking, like I said, it's not scary or anything. She was telling me about it. It's so awesome. It's so awesome. I
saw certain clips, certain little snippets of scenes, and it looked good. It looked like an old giallo movie.
And like I said, it's set in the modern day, because a couple of the characters have cell phones and shit like that, and some of the cars are modern, but it's like, when you go inside the girl's apartment, like, when you see her outfits, like her friends' outfits, stuff like that, everyone is, like, very 60s. It's very 60s. Yeah. Like, the insides of the clubs and everything like that. But, yeah, if you're into, like, the 60s shit or, like, witchcraft or anything like that, it's, like, super cool. Another one I want to recommend is The Wailing. This is a Korean movie. And this movie is, like... Okay, this is probably one of the best ones on Shudder, but it's very long, so it's a commitment. It's like over 2 hours, if I remember. I think it's 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. Now, like, the first part of it is almost like a police procedural, but almost like a dark comedy, because, like, the cops are kind of, like, bumbling. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then there's also some kind of, like, possession shit going on, too. So it's like, this one is like, it kind of it's very, like, rambling, and it's kind of all over the place, but still it kind of works. So if that sounds appealing, then probably you should check that out. But this is, like, a really, really, really good movie. So I have a huge list, so I don't want to, like, be here all day, like, checking this shit out. Okay, so another one that I have is Last Shift. This one was actually filmed in an abandoned police station right here in Sanford, Florida, where we live. It's almost kind of like a bottle movie. Like, it takes place in one location. It's kind of about a woman, and she's, like, a rookie cop, and she's, like, given this task that nobody wants, where it's like she has to, like, oversee this fucking abandoned police station. Like, all the cops have, like, moved to a newer one that they just built, so she has to stay there to guard, like, the shit that's, all the shit that's still left in, like, the storage or whatever, so no one takes it. So she has to stay there overnight to guard it, and then all of this, like, weird, like, supernatural shit starts to happen. Like, people start to come in, and, like, they're ghosts, and, like, there's just all this kind of shit. And then there's, like, occult shit later on, and that's, like, really good also. But I really, really liked this one a lot. Like I said, not very many characters, and it's, like, just very one location, but very, very good. Also The Void, if you guys haven't seen that. If you're into, like, 80s horror, Lovecraftian horror, if you're into The Thing or anything like that, you definitely need to see The Void. That has been, like, kind of recommended all over the internet, in case you guys haven't seen that. Another one, Summer of 84. Remember that one being very good, about a guy. Yeah. This one had a little bit... Yes, it's 1980, so it had a very Stranger Things type of thing going on. Also had a little bit of a Fright Night thing going on, because it's his next door neighbor, he believes, is a serial killer that's, like, killing people in his neighborhood. So it's kind of like that. It's more like a thriller than a horror movie, I feel like, a little bit. But it had some comedy to it, too. I
forgot about it.
But it's comedy, too.
This is the one where they all had mullet. The dude had a mullet and the and the handlebar mustache, like, damn.
Well, somebody did.
One guy did. I remember all that. Yeah.
But this,
they're at the pool all the time, and.
Well, no, that was Stranger Things.
Stranger Things was it? Yeah. Okay, I'm getting all confused.
He's probably drunk already.
Yeah. Well, I'm fucking loaded. But what happens to a lot of these movies is that I can't get them straight, and I'll merge 2 or 3 of them in together.
Yeah. Because here's how it's like sometimes. Like, because, seriously, I love horror movies, and I would just, like, if I had nothing else to do, I would just watch horror movies, like, all the time. I never get sick of them.
I can't take it.
And, so he would get sick of it after a while. Sometimes we watch, like, 1 or 2 at night, but, he either, like, he'll watch it if it, like captures his attention, or not, he'll just like go on his tablet or whatever and not really pay attention to it. And then if something fucked up happens, he'll look up and be like, what the fuck was that? You know
I'll be like listening to the news or something,
Whereas I could just like watch them like all day every day and like not get bored of them.
I can't get lost in stories and fantasy all the time. I have too much of a, I don't know, I guess it's coming from the military and having PTSD. I have too much of a situational awareness. I want to know what's actually happening somewhere.
Yeah.
I can't go off into a damn La La Land for too long.
I don't know if it's that, but it's just kind of like, because I have that too. It's like the reason I don't do that is because I have too much other shit I have to do. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Because I'm, I freelance, so I have to work all the time or I don't eat.
Right.
So, I have to like always be aware of like work. Yeah. But if I didn't have to do that, if I had like $1 billion and I could just like skate forever, I would still do creative shit. I would still design games. I would still write novels. I would still do that kind of shit because I enjoy that. But some days, I have to be honest with you, I would probably just get some booze and just lay down and just watch horror movies like all day. And it's like, I don't get bored of them because how could you get bored of them? There's so many different ones.
The thing with me is that I have a problem watching any old movie.
Yeah.
Because it's a story that's coming at me and it's being told to me by a person or maybe a group of people. And when the story comes at me the wrong way, I go, oh, who's telling this story? This fucking pussy telling it. So I get mad, you know what I mean? I'm like, he's trying to scare me with that. It's that kind of stuff.
Well,
you know what I mean? I'm like, that character's upset because of this? Man, I don't want to hear this guy. So it's different. Okay, put yourself in a position where you're being told a story of bravery and honor by a person that doesn't know what bravery or honor is. You're not going to be able to tolerate it. That's the way I see certain things.
But I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm a very laid back person in some ways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm very willing to take people as they are and also take a movie as it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, if this is what someone made and they chose to put it on the screen and I chose to watch it, then I'm going to watch it and see, and I'm going to give it like the benefit of the doubt. Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that I don't see shit that I hate, because I do.
Yeah.
But generally, if I chose to watch the shit, I will usually watch it to the end, unless it really, really annoyed me or bored me or whatever. Then I'll turn it off. But I don't usually. I will usually give it its 2 hours or hour and a half or whatever. And I'll just be like, all right, just what do you want to show me? And then I will try to find something. You
see, that's what me and Jenny offer. Our show offers a well-rounded opinion of things, because we come at a problem
from different directions.
From two different directions. I came from a long series of institutions inside the military-industrial complex where it's just nothing but just one long series of fucking process of elimination. You know what I mean? Of eliminating the weak link over and over and all. You know what I mean? It's like a Darwinian process of elimination, and it's real easy for me to go, no, that's fucked up, get rid of that, you know what I mean? So I'll just eliminate something quickly. So it's hard for me to get into a movie if I'm watching it and the tone doesn't match the material, and a character does or says something that does not fit into the gestalt of the story, and I, you know what I mean? If I see a major problem, especially if it's early on, I reject the story.
Yeah,
so, and it's just
and I can see that some people do have that.
Yeah,
it's just, I guess, because I write novels, I write nonfiction, I design games, I do all this kind of stuff. So I do a lot of creative stuff. So I'm willing to give people I'm just like, okay, I understand this is you, this is your vision. Like, show it to me.
Right.
And like I said, I'm usually willing to watch it all the way to the end, even if I'm not super invested in it, because I just want to see where it goes. I want to see what you do with it.
It's a big difference. I mean, Jenny and I, when we went to see, say, like, what was it, The Last Jedi?
Yeah.
Saw The Last Jedi. we saw the same movie, but Jenny and I saw two different movies. She liked it. I
didn't mind it.
I was 5 minutes into it, and I was going, "Fuck this movie, fuck this movie."
Well, here's where I'm gonna differ with you, because I'm pretty sure you liked it when we saw it, but then afterward,
no, I didn't like it.
You didn't like it.
No, I didn't. Well, it's the first warning sign that went on is when he damn prank called the damn Empire.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember that? He prank
I didn't
called
mind.
the Empire.
Like, I didn't think it was the best one, but I didn't really. I didn't. And the thing that makes me laugh is that people get so, like, I don't get, like, if I don't like something, I just forget about it. It's like, but I don't get this thing where people get, like, they just go on and on and on about shit they don't like. I don't get that.
I'm a bastard.
If I don't like something, I just forget about it.
Well, Star Wars was important to me.
It was to me too, but it's like I'm not. It's not so important that I'm just gonna. If I see one that's not that good, I'm just gonna forget about it. Like, I saw the Phantom Menace and I didn't really like that, and I was just like, oh well.
I didn't like.
I didn't like that one.
Which one was Phantom Menace?
It was the first of the prequels.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
Phantom Menace. I'm not talking about Phantom Menace right now.
No, I'm just saying
that was the weakest of the prequels.
I'm just saying, for an example, like I was super into Star Wars too.
I liked Revenge of the Sith.
I was super into into Star Wars. I was really excited to see Phantom Menace, and then I saw it in the theater, and I'm like, did I like that? I think I didn't like that. And then, like, but I didn't get upset about it. I was like, oh well.
Me and you have had long conversations. What was wrong with the damn Star Wars prequels? Phantom Menace. Jar Jar Binks was the problem in Phantom Menace.
Well, among many other things.
And hokiness. George Lucasian, fucking...
Also, the character, like, what, like, what the fuck with the sand and the shit? It's like, this has been kind of, like, gone over many times.
Okay, now...
We know.
But by the time Revenge of the Sith came around, it was a pretty good series.
Although Darth Maul was the only cool thing about that.
Yeah. There was a lot of cool shit in the first one.
That was the only cool thing.
But okay, look. I'm getting back to what I was talking about. When I saw fucking Leia Poppins or Leia flying through space, I was like, oh fuck, no way. And then the Canto Bight scene didn't seem right. The tone was totally... And then the whole thing about... What's the fighter pilot's name?
Who? Poe Dameron.
Poe Dameron, yeah. Poe Dameron and the thing with the Admiral... What's her name? With Holdo, yeah. You see, you can remember all these names. I can't remember these. These characters don't mean anything to me. But that whole thing did not make sense. As an ex-military man, the commander doesn't withhold information about the plan, okay? That just did not fucking make sense. And then you had a part where fucking the ex-stormtrooper, what was the ex-stormtrooper's name again?
Finn?
Finn, yeah. Finn goes to sacrifice himself to save his friends, and then the Chinese girl stops him from his sacrifice, and then says some crazy shit about, we're gonna win this war by what? It just by saving those we love instead of destroying who we hate. No, that's not how war works. It's just it's definitely this. You could tell the difference between that fucking story. Okay, maybe hold on. You can tell the difference between a person who's never had any kind of military experience and a person who does when it comes to writing a story, because the generation of guys who wrote the originals, those are World War II vets. They knew what war was like. So they could tell a Star Wars story. They knew about, sacrifice and the honor of service. And even the Empire was portrayed as an honorable adversary of professionals. You know what I mean? Because they were. They were just doing what they were ordered to do, And yeah, they were supposed to be the Nazi Empire, but the Nazi Empire was doing what it was ordered to do. And, they didn't make them look like fools. And if they're fools, then that means they're not a threat. To be a threat, you have to be the real deal, So that was the problem with Rian Johnson's take on the Empire. If they're a bunch of idiots, then that means they're no threat. It doesn't work.
Okay.
You can only be a threat if you know what the fuck you're doing.
All right, so we're doing more horror movie recommendations. Because like I said, this is a very ramshackle...
Yeah, we didn't get far into that before we started going down the Star Wars path.
That's what before you started going down the Star Wars
path.
I was
just going down. That's what okay. I'm gonna leave.
I'm just saying. I don't understand, and I just told you this before we turned the microphone. I don't understand people who make entire videos about shit they don't like.
Because it's awesome.
I don't get that.
It's just.
Like, if you don't like something, then just forget about it.
I'm just saying.
It's like, why make like a 20, 30, 40-minute video whining about shit you don't like? I don't get it.
I don't know, dude.
It's the same
I didn't
thing.
Do that, though.
It's the same thing about like commenting on video. Like, somebody that never watches your videos and then they comment like on your video like, you guys suck. I'm like, why did you bother? Why bother?
I have high standards for Star Wars, and a lot of the people do. You know what I mean? They just expect real good movies. They're expecting good movies, you know? And in that particular movie, I don't think the enemy is scary unless they're shown as being competent.
Well, see, the thing is,
they didn't come up. They came across as clownish.
Well, I think the thing too is that I don't expect anything. That's why I don't watch. I mean, I watch trailers like if I can't avoid it, but I don't watch reviews. I don't read reviews or anything like that before I go see a movie that I want to see because I don't want anybody's stupid opinions like clouding. Like I don't want any preconceptions about it. I just want to like take it as it is and see how I feel about it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna let it ride.
Yeah, so I just take things as they are.
All right. Not me.
I don't have any like preconceptions about shit. I don't have any like, oh, I expect this to be really good. Like sometimes I expect things to be good and it's disappointing and stuff, but it's like I usually try to like temper my expectations. I try to not expect nothing. I just want to see how it is.
I expect Star Wars to be at least a Star Wars like substance. You know what I'm talking about?
Like a cheese-like substance?
Yeah, a Star Wars-like substance, yeah. And I don't think really Disney...
But like I said, that movie came out like 2 years ago, and it's like...
The new one's coming out in a couple weeks.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, it'll be good to see it. I'm just like I said, I have no expectations.
We're going to see it, but I think it's going to be a shit show. And then...
see, I have no expectations.
Terminator Dark Fate's coming out here in a few days, and Brandon said it was okay.
Not Brandon, Oliver.
Yeah, Oliver.
Harper.
Oliver Harper said it was okay.
Go watch his channel. He kicks ass.
Said it was okay. We'll see.
Like I said, I have no expectation. I'm not going to get butthurt if it's bad. It's like I'm not.
Because he said it was okay. I'm a little bit more optimistic about it because I trust his opinion on things.
Yeah, like I said. Yeah. Like I get excited about stuff. Like I was excited to see like The Lighthouse because I loved The Witch, Robert Eggers who did the direction. And it's like, so I was hoping it would be good, obviously, but I'm very much this I'm just going to like take this as it comes and like see how I feel about it. I don't want to bring any preconceptions to it. Right. Because like I said, I'm a creative person. I'm an artist myself, so it's like I know how that shit goes. So I don't, I kind of want it to be like unbiased. I'm trying to come at shit from as like an unbiased as possible. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. I try to do that. I don't always succeed, but I try to do that. So what were we doing? So we were doing like Shudder recommendations.
Yeah.
All right. So Summer 84 was the last one that we were talking about. Another one that I would recommend very highly is one called Terrified. I believe this is Argentinian. Wasn't it Argentinian or Peruvian or something like that?
I don't remember that one.
It was basically like about a whole haunted neighborhood. It wasn't just like a haunted house, but it was like a whole neighborhood that was haunted. One of the best like fucking opening scenes, whatever, like this woman like in the fucking bathtub that was like slamming against the wall and shit like that. It was like super cool. But yeah, so check that one out.
I remember.
Yeah, it was a really good one. Also, and this is actually on Shudder at the moment, and this is probably one of my favorite horror movies of the past 10 years, easily Starry Eyes. And I have written extensively about it on my blog, which is called Goddess of Hellfire, if you want to go check it out. This is an awesome, awesome movie. I love it so much. It's basically like, it's like a kind of Rosemary's Baby sort of thing, but it's also kind of like a Dark Side of Hollywood type of thing. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like sell your soul like for stardom type shit.
I don't remember that one.
And it's also, you didn't see it, I don't think. And it also has like some really super grotesque body horror. I mean, it's revolting, but in a good way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that very, very highly, because that's seriously one of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. Another good one that is on Shudder is called Downrange. Now, this is one that shows you don't need a big scope to make a really good suspenseful horror movie. This takes place entirely on like one 30-foot stretch of road, right? It's like basically these people are going like on a road trip or whatever. Yeah, like none of them know each other. It's all
they
like
get pinned down by a sniper.
And they get pinned down by a sniper.
Yeah, I saw bits
in this
of it.
one like bit of road, and it is like a super compelling, super gory. Yeah. It's just really, really good. I had a really good time.
Yeah, I only saw bits of it. I think I saw the end of it because I was doing something else. Came in and I saw it, and it looked really good. I'm gonna go back
really
and see
good.
It.
It's really good.
Yeah. It was a man's kind of movie.
But like I said, it's one of those ones that shows, and like I said, you don't need a huge budget. No. You don't need like a bunch of locations. You don't need a bunch of special effects.
No, you just need good writing.
You just need good writing. You need good characters. You need, So this one is like really, really good. I really like this one a lot. Another good one that's on there is called Honeymoon. This one, I'm not going to say too much about this one because I didn't know where this was going. Like when I started watching, I just saw somebody like recommended, oh, this is a good one. That was on, I think it was on Netflix at the time, so I watched it on Netflix at the time. But they were like, yeah, watch this one, it's really good. So I didn't know where it was going. I didn't know what it was about or anything like that. Because like I said, I like to approach things without preconceptions. So I watched this, and I didn't know where it was going, and it was fucking great. It's so good. It's just like, it's basically about this couple. They just got married. They're on their honeymoon. They're at this like remote cabin that like the wife's parents used to own. And then all of a sudden the wife starts acting like super weird. Like she disappears into the woods one night, and it's like, then she starts like doing weird shit. Like she has this notebook where she keeps like writing down her name and her birth date and like all this stuff. Like she has to remember, like she's like forgetting stuff. And it just kind of goes on. Like I said, that's all I'm going to say about it, because it's better if you don't know where it's going, because I enjoyed it much more not knowing where it was going. You know what I mean? Because I was just like, what the fuck is going on with this chick, man? It was it was like super, super cool. Another one I really liked that's on Shudder is called Sam Was Here. I love these types of like creepy, ambiguous, like this is one about a dude that's like, he's on like a road trip or some shit like that. He stops at some fucking gas station, and then like you don't know exactly what's going on through the whole thing, you know what I mean, but it's just like it reminded me a little bit of Children of the Corn in a slight type of way, but not exactly. That's not exactly where it's going, and it doesn't necessarily tell you exactly where it's going, but I like that kind of shit usually. So yeah, that's a good one too. Last Will and Testament of Rosalind Lee. Now, if you like kind of slow burn ghost stories, this will be right up your alley. This was actually written and directed, I believe, by Rod Goodinio, who's the guy. He's like the editor of Remorgue magazine, which is like the best horror magazine ever. It's based out of Canada. And so I was excited to see this because it's just like, I love that magazine. It's like I've been buying it every month or every 3 months, I think it comes out now. And so this one was like, it's like I said, it's a slow burn. So if you don't have the patience for that, then you probably won't sit through it. But I really, really liked it. I thought it was like a really, really good kind of creepy like build up. There's like some really creepy imagery, and it was just like whole dread infused kind of atmosphere. And I really like that type of thing. There's also a couple of series on there, other than Creepshow, which we talk about a lot. There's actually a mini series on there called Beyond the Walls. I think it's French or Belgian. It's I think it's 3 episodes. And that one was really, really good. It's basically about this woman, and she like rents a house, and there's like all this. It reminded me a little bit of House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, if you guys have read that, where it's just kind of like you go behind the walls, and then there's like all this shit like behind there that couldn't really be behind there. You know what I mean? And it's like endless. Yeah. And they don't really explain. Yeah,
I have dreams like that.
Yeah, so it's like, it's kind of like has that kind of surrealistic atmosphere to it. But I really, really liked it. Like I said, I think it's 3 episodes.
You said these weird ass dreams where I'd be in a mall, I walk into one store, and when I go into the store, I'm in another store, the
Yeah.
wrong store.
Yeah.
And then everything I do, I go up the escalator to get out, and I end up downstairs.
Yeah.
No matter, and there's no way out of the damn mall.
You'd probably like House of Leaves.
Yeah.
Maybe. Well, maybe not. It's a little bit of a dense novel. I have it somewhere, but it's like...
I had a dream one time where I opened up the closet door, and inside the closet was the inside of an elevator. And I got
I've had dreams like that.
I got in it, and there was buttons that went all the way down to like 200. And I hit a button, and I fell straight down.
I don't want to go all the way down there.
I was going miles down underneath the ground. Yeah, it's like a weird. And then when I got out, I was in a 70s apartment somewhere without any windows.
Yeah, I've had dreams
like weird
like that.
Shit like that.
Yeah, like, but it's like, so anytime a movie can like successfully convey that type of shit, you know what I mean? Seriously, House of Leaves is one of my favorite books of like the last several years, just because, I mean, it's about this house, and these people go in there to like investigate, and it keeps getting bigger on the inside.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they find this staircase going down, and it just keeps going and go. Like they're like camping out like every few days.
Yeah.
No, it's a book.
Okay.
And so there's that, and then there's like another narrative.
Yeah, they're camping out and shit. I've had dreams like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's very dreamlike.
Right.
And there's also like another narrative going on. It's like a meta narrative, and it's like kind of like in the margins and like down in the margins, like somebody else that's like commenting on this thing that they found, like about these reports about the people going into the house and like disappearing and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like this big. I kind of want to see it turned into a movie, but I don't know how they would.
Right.
Because, I mean, novels, you can do a lot more complicated shit than you can do in a movie. It's like, I'm not really sure how they would pull that off, and it would still be good.
Right.
Because in a book, it's super creepy and it like works really well. But like in a movie, it might just be dumb. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody could do it. But like I said, this might be a thing. I mean, House of Leaves might have to be a fucking series, I'm thinking. So because it's the Halloween show, someone in the YouTube comments suggested that why don't we do history of Halloween?
Yeah.
Or like just kind of like urban legends around Halloween, like shit like that. I was like, yeah, why haven't we done that? So I guess we decided we were going to do a little bit of that on this show too, because like I said, we're doing like a whole variety of things. Yeah. You think you can?
I can handle it.
Okay.
I'm ready to handle it.
You're ready to handle it?
I'm ready, yeah.
Okay, I like your enthusiasm.
Yeah, Red Bull and tequila, you know, got me ready to handle anything.
It's a stimulant and a depressant at the same time.
At the same time, that's right.
I know, right? So he's like
a
kind
speedball.
Yeah. So, Halloween, where did it come from? Most people are probably aware that most of the, traditions around Halloween and stuff like that date from the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain.
Yeah, how ancient was that?
About 2,000 years ago.
Okay.
Or give or take.
That's what they say.
Yeah. And, the Celts, they lived mostly in Ireland and other parts of the UK, parts of northern France, shit like that. So, Samhain, initially, was kind of that was like the end of their year. Because it was kind of like marked the end of the harvest period, like the end of the summer. And it was kind of like the day where you knew that the winter and the cold weather was coming, and you know what I mean? So it was kind of like that transitional type of period. Now, because of this transition, the belief arose among the Celts that the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead was most porous at this particular time of the year. So, on the night of October 31st, they would celebrate Samhain. And on this night, like I said, it was kind of like... that was when, the dead could communicate with the living more easily. There was all that other kind of shit. So, the spirits, they thought, could do shit like damaging crops and like causing other kinds of problems. But it also... on the other hand, made it easier for living people to communicate with people on the other side. So you could get like kind of predictive powers because you could ask the dead what was going to happen. So you could like predict the future. There was also kind of some shit about, and this might have come about a little bit later on, but there was some kind of stuff where women would do kind of stuff to like predict like who their husbands were going to be, or like, you know, that kind of stuff too. But they were also kind of predicting the future of how the crops were, you know, are the crops going to be good next year, like shit like that, because you could ask dead people about it because they were supposedly like right there.
Kind of like Midsummer stuff, and stuff from that old movie with what's his name in it.
Which one?
You know what's his name?
What, Wicker Man?
Yeah, Wicker Man. She knows what I'm talking about.
Your folk horror.
She speaks
type.
my drunk. Yeah.
There's another T-shirt right there.
Yeah, she speaks my drunk.
Well, it's just like most of the time I kind of know what you're
after I had that head injury when I was in the Army and everything, you know, she knows that I forget the personal names of people a lot, but she knows what I'm talking about. I was like that thing and this and her and him, and she knows what I'm talking about.
Well, it's like
most of the time.
Well, plus too, because it's like we've been together so long. So when you be like that thing with the deal, and I'm just like, well, because I can extrapolate from like what we were talking about before, and I know how your mind works, so I figure that that's probably where your mind went to. So I figured that's
my mind works in symbols and pictures.
So I figured I knew
not words. So,
because I was talking about folk horror.
Yeah.
And
you knew that Wicker Man was.
So I knew Wicker Man was probably the first thing that you thought of, because that was like a very Midsummer. Yeah. Because I knew you weren't talking about Midsummer, the Ari Aster movie.
It gets worse as I drink.
It really does.
Yeah.
He gets like, let's go here.
Yeah. We'll be up at the club, and somebody will walk in that I know, and I know that fucker's name, and I go, "What's his name?"
Yeah, he doesn't remember anybody's name.
And she has to remember. She has to remind me of the name. Oh yeah.
I'm just please don't.
Yeah, it's not.
Just don't be like, "Hey, guy."
Yeah, and it's not disrespect. It's just the inability to remember a person's name.
Just like little his brain's like Swiss cheese.
Yeah, no, it's not like Swiss
like little.
As soon as she reminds me, like, oh yeah, and then I remember.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll remember it for that whole night. It's kind of like performance anxiety or something. Or like if you're in the men's room trying to take a leak, and there's somebody in the stall next to you, you can't. It's exactly what it's like when I see somebody I know, it puts me under pressure and I forget that person's name.
I have that every now and then, but usually I'm pretty good at remembering shit.
Right.
Usually.
But here's the thing. I was like that before that motorcycle wreck.
Yeah.
It got worse after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, I'm sure that didn't help.
It didn't help. It got worse after.
So sometimes when we're out, I feel like the human Rolodex, because I have to like cough up like
people's names. Yeah,
I have to like cough up, and I'm drunk too, but I have to like sit there and cough up like everybody.
Right. She has to remember the names of all my friends.
I have to remember the names of all his friends. I have to like remember where everything is. I have to like remember not to leave shit everywhere.
You gotta remember to turn the damn stove off.
I gotta remember to turn the stove off after him. Yeah. It's like, it's very tiring.
Yeah. Well, I'm a disabled veteran. You know,
I know.
That's how that.
But like I said,
I'm getting paid for a reason.
I know.
It really, it's not a bullshit disability.
No, I know. Yeah. But it is kind of like. It is very stressful sometimes because I feel like I have to remember because I have to remember everything for two people.
Yeah, and here's the weird thing: if I forget your name, don't for a second think that I forgot about you. I know everything that we said. I know everything about you. I remember everything about all the conversations.
You might remember that better than I do.
Exactly.
But I remember people's names. And
it's the name that I forget.
I remember people's names, people's birthdays.
And then as soon as she reminds me, it's just boom. I totally remember. It's like, and I'll remember it from then on out until the next day.
Yeah.
Something about sleeping and then waking up. Actually,
it like stitches everything back together.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
Your brain is a mysterious place.
You've seen it do some. She's seen it do some weird shit too.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
So what were we talking
all this Jungian stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carl Jung.
Jung.
Mm-hmm.
Jung.
I'm gonna say it like a white boy.
Jung. Like Jenga, but
I'm gonna say it Mississippi style.
You and Elvis, okay.
Yeah, me and Elvis talking about Carl Jung. Jungian archetypes.
Now that's something I would
coming from the unconscious.
Yeah.
It's where the blows comes from.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure it is.
Oh, I know. Yeah, Carl had some paranormal shit happen. He saw ghosts once he started on.
Do you know, like, and we were talking about this the other day because I just saw a video a couple days ago where someone was talking about they were reinterpreting The Shining from a Jungian standpoint.
The red book sitting.
And
right
they pointed out that in Ullman's office, what appeared to be a copy of Carl Jung's Red Book, which hadn't been published at that point, but some people did know about it because it was like unpublished for a long time, like after he died.
Well, Tony is Carl Jung's unconscious.
Yeah.
That's Jung. Tony is the one that shows you things.
Yeah.
In my case, my version of Tony was the one that moved things.
Yeah.
But it shows me things too, if you read the book that we wrote, together. But yeah, it shows me things too, and I have feelings about things. It does. It is in the unconscious.
The thing that interested me about, and I didn't really like, and we've talked about this before, but I didn't really like the Shining miniseries that came out in 1997. Yeah. It was actually Stephen King oversaw it, but Mick Garris directed it. It was a lot closer to the book, but I didn't like it as much. Probably for that very reason, even though I like the book very much. But one thing that they did in the miniseries that they didn't do in Kubrick's version of the movie was that Tony was an apparition. Like, he was a person, like a kid with glasses, and he would be floating there off in the distance. Yeah. And then they reveal at the end, spoiler alert, that Tony is actually Danny grown up. Yeah. So that's like an older version of him, like coming ego. Back. Yeah, like telling him. Yeah. So in that way, you could see it in a more Jungian. I mean, I like Kubrick's version. Like, as a film version, I like Kubrick's version better with the finger. I like that better. Yeah. Because I feel like in the book it works better to have he's an apparition of his older self or whatever. That's fine, on the page, but in the movie it looks cheesy. Yeah. So just like the hedge animals look cheesy in the movie. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's cool in a book when you imagine it. Yeah. But then when you actually see it in front of your face.
I think in terms of Jung, I think maybe Tony floating in the sky and the older version of him, was Tony. I think Jung probably would have called it the anima, maybe, or the animus.
Yeah.
I think that it was something like that, and I would probably call it what the daemon.
Yeah. You should read
the daemon.
Philip Pullman's his Dark Materials trilogy, because that was a whole thing where people had they had daemons, they had an animal. Right. That was a manifestation of their soul, essentially. Yeah. And it was outside of them, they could, it was their buddy or whatever.
Right, well, for people who don't know what we're talking about, imagine this. You're playing a video game, all right? You got a little character running around on a screen, all right? You think that little character is you. Let's say that character
it's like an avatar.
Is you, all right? And that's you. That's all you know. Is that little character in that screen. But then all of a sudden that character in the screen realizes that he's just a video image, and that there's a player on the other end, and that video character turns around and looks at you through the screen and sees you playing him. Ooh. Well, who's who? The real you is the player, not the fucking video game character.
I would argue that there isn't even a real you.
The daemon you on those damn video controls is the real you. The character in the video game is not you. Right now in this world, we're the video game characters. Our daemons are the real us in another dimension playing this game.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
This is a simulation. That's how I'm looking at it.
Like the Matrix.
That's how I think it is. Yeah. Kind of like the Matrix, but yeah. So your daemon, so Tony would have been his daemon.
Yeah.
Okay. The guy who was really in control of shit. It was the shit that was showing him something.
Yeah. Right. Well, it was a future version of himself.
Right.
Which I got that. I don't even remember. I read the book not too long ago. I reread it, but it's I don't even remember if he went super into that. But I'm assuming that was what he meant, because that's what he put in the miniseries. Yeah. I like that idea on the page. I just didn't like it so much in the movie. I thought it was cheesy.
You couldn't shoot it the right way.
That's what I mean. There's no way to do that. It's
especially for a TV series.
Like I said, horror works much better, simpler.
I like
simpler and more ambiguous and less showy.
I love the Kubrick movie. I loved the book. I liked the TV series.
Yeah, you liked it.
I liked them all.
I didn't mind it. I just thought it wasn't... Like, the first time I saw it, I hated it. I couldn't even finish it.
The
I was
TV
just like, this
series,
sucks. Click.
You can't compare the TV series to the movies.
They're two totally different animals.
Yeah, it's two different things.
It's two totally different animals. Well, like I said, the Kubrick movie, he just basically took the frame of the novel and built his own vision on it. Which, that's good. It's a classic.
It is that novel, but it's from the point of view of what it would look like in the material world without all that spiritual
That's
stuff
what I mean.
Without
all the shit. And that's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
I liked the distance.
Yeah.
Because you were seeing what would happen
if you were
there.
Right.
Seeing it happen. Like, you didn't have access to, like, people's inner thoughts. You didn't have nothing like that. You were just seeing...
And you didn't have any
no exposition, no...
You didn't have any kind of psychic ability to see what was happening in the spirit world, and you wouldn't know anything about the past. You would just see some apparitions and some weird shit, and Jack going crazy.
Yeah.
That's what you would say.
That's what I mean, and that's much scarier to me because it's not explained to you.
Because it's not explained.
The problem with the miniseries, like I said, I don't have a problem with it in a book because when you're writing a book, you have to essentially create a world in someone's head. Right. So you have to explain things. You have to do exposition. You have to do things like that. But in a movie, I think it's much scarier to leave it ambiguous where, like, you don't know what people's inner thoughts are. You don't know... You know what I mean? It's much scarier to leave it like that.
The TV series was not scary, but it was a lot more accurate to the book.
It was. That was one thing I will give it.
Once you show everything about the book, the tone has to change. Yeah. You end up with something kind of like Frighteners.
Yeah.
All right? And that's what it was like. It was kind of like something like the old movie Frighteners, which I liked the Frighteners. The Frighteners was... I thought it was a fucking awesome movie. Kind of like the paranormal version of listen, I'm slurring. The paranormal version of fucking Back to the Future, really. The dark Back to the Future. Yeah. I liked it. It should just be very difficult to get the same tone as the book into a TV series that shows
That's
you
what
everything.
I mean. It's two completely different mediums.
It's just not going to work the same way.
It's two completely different mediums.
If you want to know if you want to know the tone of the book, but in visual sense, you got to go for the movie.
Yeah.
But if you want the substance of the book in a visual medium, you got to go to the damn.
But like I said, series. The miniseries was very literal to the book, which some people might like that better, but I didn't like that. Because, like I said, it's two different mediums. They don't work the same.
It's time for them to redo The Stand. Just saying. I saw the TV version of The Stand. And in the time that it came out, it was pretty good. It's okay, but... I revisited it, and I was like, man, that shit was unwatchable.
Well, it's very dated.
Very dated.
Very dated. It's just kind of like the 1990 which is good,
just,
but it's dated in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay, so where are we now?
We kind of got off about The Shining.
Yeah,
like we usually
Fuck The Shining. We already talk about The Shining. We already talk about The Shining.
It's one of those movies, man. We just, like, kind of always get into it.
It's something from our childhood, so...
Well, and it's one of those things that, like, it's one of those things that, like, is open to multiple interpretations.
Yeah. There's just something about that movie that kind of affected our generation. I think some of the younger people kind of like the movie. I mean, they seemed to like it last time they showed it in the theater.
Well, yeah, like I said, it was kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean,
and like I said, I do feel like, as much on, we're old people now, so it's like, I don't do this, but I don't feel like, but, a lot of people, like, shit on millennials and shit on shit like that, but it does seem like a lot of them appreciate shit from the 70s and 80s, maybe even more than shit that comes out that came out later.
Zoomers seem to like it even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I definitely have felt like that there's like kind of a constant like appreciation for that kind of shit. So, especially among the horror community, like I said, because, and I think I mentioned this before, but the horror community does seem much more, in general, does seem much more open to stuff from different eras.
Yeah.
And not like judging stuff. It's like, oh, this came out so long. Oh, it's so old or something like that. Because, I mean, even when I was a kid...
We can go back and look at Nosferatu.
Well, that's what I mean. Even when I was a kid, growing up in the 70s and 80s, even I liked shit that came out in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. It's like, I wasn't like, oh, that's so old, I can't like that. No. It's like, there's something to like from, like, every decade.
One of the best fucking horror movies of all times, it's still kind of creep you out in a way, was The Black Cat from 1920s. Boris
Karloff,
that's what I
mean.
Bela Lugosi.
And honestly...
That's a classy, fucking weird-ass movie.
I have a whole series on my blog, if you guys have not read it, about silent movies. Mm-hmm. I love the vibe of silent movies because there's something like otherworldly about them. There's no audio. It's like they feel like they came from a different dimension a little bit because it was so long ago. And they definitely have like this really creepy like atmosphere that I don't think will ever be replicated. Although, I do feel like in the 90s they did it with a little bit with Begotten, where he tried to kind of make it look like that. But I mean, if you've seen like the 1920s, it was, I can't remember what year it was, but it was like early 1920s. They did a really weird like surrealistic adaptation of The Fall of the House of Usher. And they did like all these really cool like optical effects, like with all these weird staircases, like kind of going over. So it was like visually like really cool looking. It looked like a really cool like goth video, except in the 20s. And it's like the fact that people were doing that back then, I don't know. It's like I could always appreciate that. I don't care if it's old. I don't care what year it's from.
Visually, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is fucking weird. It was awesome. It's, by today's standards, a long and boring movie. But visually, the way they did shit and the style that it was
I love that German expressionism shit. I still love that. I love that whole, they were all into like the psychoanalysis, and they were all into kind of like we're like, the reason they call it expressionism, it's like we're expressing like what the interior of your mind like looks like on the exterior, like it's all like warped and shit. Yeah. So it's like I really, really like that aesthetic. I've always liked that aesthetic.
If you want to go back and see a fucking weird ass movie, it's a talkie. See, The Black Cat with Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. You could probably watch it for free on YouTube.
Man, there's zillions of movies I could like recommend from back then.
Yeah, that movie was ahead of its time. Sexy as shit, too. A bunch of Satanists.
That's what I mean, before the Hays Code.
Yeah, Satanists and weird necrophilia.
But even then, it's like there was a bunch of like, I mean, look at like Todd Browning's Freaks, which came out in the 30s, or like Cat People that came out in the 40s. It's like, there's all kind of fucking shit back then that's like still good now if you watch it nowadays, I think. But like I said, I feel like horror fans, like real horror fans, not just like casual horror fans, are kind of more open to shit that's older, because you can appreciate shit in the context of the time that it came out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Which I think is kind of important when you're approaching kind of any work of art. You need to know like the context around the time that it came out. Yeah. To appreciate it fully. You don't have to, but, I mean, seriously, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, The Haunting, that came out in 1963. Still scary as shit, and they don't show anything. Which I think a lot of, like...
I don't remember that one.
Recent horror movies... Well, it's based on the Shirley Jackson novel, Haunting of Hill House, which obviously they made into a Netflix series later on, which was very successful and was also very good. Although that kind of deviated from the novel a little bit, but I didn't really mind that much because it was kind of in the spirit of the novel. But The Haunting was directed by Robert Wise, and it was like the quintessential example. Well, it's my favorite haunted house novel of all time. Easily. But the cool thing about the movie is that it took the spirit of the novel and it just like, it did it exactly like on the screen. They're like, we're not going to show anything like there's no apparitions in it. There's no like demons popping out of the mirrors and nothing like that. But everything they did in the movie, it was all atmosphere. It was all like weird angles. It was all like, a door is breathing. It's like all this like really subtle shit, but it was like really, really, really scary.
Haunting of Hill House still kind of stands up, if you ask me.
It was Haunting of Hill House was actually, it was based on a Richard Matheson novel. It was kind of like The Haunting of Hill House, but like almost like a more, I don't want to say campy because that sounds bad, but it's like almost like a more, overt example of that. But it was similar. It was a similar vibe. I mean, I like that as well. And the book is great, too.
They had little gothic witchy hotties and fucking paranormal investigators and weird sexual shit happening in a fucking creepy old house and the Belasco house. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest,
that movie with Roddy McDowell and everything.
Like I said, that is my favorite.
Kind of fucking hard to top in a certain way.
If you had to ask me like to narrow it down, because horror, like I said, people assume like, oh, I don't like.
And
horror
it's not
movies.
Gory.
I'm like, what kind of horror movies are you talking about? Because there's a million different kinds.
It's not gory. Not a whole lot happens in it. Fucking in terms of people getting killed, but it's just creepy ass movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a prototype of The Evil. I mean, remember that movie with Evil? Yeah. I really liked that movie. Some people said that I'm a Mormon and this is the only movie they would let us see.
It's on Tubi. If you want to watch it for free. I'm just telling you right now. I have some more recommendations for Tubi movies later on.
You don't need a lot of special effects.
You don't. And like I said...
You need a good cast and you need good acting and a good tale.
I think that the problem is... And like I said, I'm not shitting on special effects. I'm not shitting on CGI. It can be done well.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can't rely on it. Horror does not come from that.
No.
Horror, ultimately, I think, comes from ambiguity, from not knowing something. Like, mystery is scary.
Well, you know what else it comes from? Ultimately, it comes from acting.
Well,
because the actors have to be able to deliver that shit to where you believe it. And sound,
that too.
And soundtrack has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, sure.
It has a lot to do with it.
And I think I mentioned that before when we were talking about The Lighthouse, because I said I think a lot of people don't realize how much audio, not just score, but just like the whole audio like design of a movie.
Yeah, that's
like,
what it gets you.
Affects. Because seriously, why is it that if you're watching a horror movie and it's scary, like people turn it down?
Yeah.
Why is that? Because it's like the sound
it
is what's
nuts off the damn movie.
Right, exactly. It's that's what's scaring you. Is like the sound effects.
Looking back on it, when I was a kid, the movies that fucked me up the worst really is because of the damn music.
Yeah.
That's what
the music and the sound. Like I said, if you turn it down, it's not scary anymore. Yeah. Not always, but like in a lot that is true.
My cousin Wesley was deaf. We could put those horror movies on; they wouldn't affect him.
And they wouldn't affect him at all.
He's like, what?
That's it. Well, that would make me sad. It's like
because because that's where the emotions coming from. Is all that fuck is the soundtrack. Yeah.
And like I said, I think we were talking about The Shining before. I mean that's a scary movie on its own, but like I think the audio of the soundtrack of it really like contributes to. And David Lynch knows this very well too. I mean, he is super into like the sound design of his movies and stuff, and I think that really makes, because he always has these like weird like droning sounds. Like you don't really notice them.
And it
like
builds up to.
But it's like, but it's in the back of your mind like the whole time, and it's just like unsettling you and like freaking you out like the whole time. So he's like very aware of that kind of shit. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing, like to come. It's a good thing to approach and like come at. But I was gonna say too that. What I was saying before, and that's a really good example of why you don't have to show a lot, like to make a good. Like I said, that's why you don't need a big like budget or anything like that. Like I said, acting and is probably the most important thing, because if you buy that these people are in this situation and they're scared, then you will buy into the premise, no matter how outlandish it is.
Haunting of Hill House, The Evil, all right. The Legacy. What else? The movies that are along that same line.
The Changeling.
Burnt Offerings. Right. There wasn't any real fucking gore or special effects in them, but they just fucking scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
When I was a kid.
I mean,
I can watch them now, and they're still awesome.
Yeah.
They're still awesome.
I like gore. I do.
Yeah, but you don't need it.
You don't really need it,
no.
I mean, and that's what I'm saying is like, okay, so they made The Haunting in 1963, which is a black and white movie based on Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Creepy as shit. And like I said, there was no gore in it. There was no ghosts in it. There was nothing like that. It was all atmosphere. It was all acting. It was all like these weird, like creepy angles that they had, like shadows that maybe there was something there, but you couldn't quite tell. So it was all like this ambiguity, which was very much in line with the book. They remade the movie in 1999 with fucking Owen Wilson was in it, Catherine Zeta-Jones was in it, Liam Neeson was in it, Lily Taylor was in it. I love her. But it was let me be diplomatic about this. It was not good. It was shit, actually. And the thing about it, I try to be diplomatic, I just couldn't. But it's like the thing about it, whoever remade it, and I don't remember who, maybe it was Jan de Bont, I can't remember. But whoever remade it, they're like, okay, well, we're just going to make this a standard paranormal investigators. They're investigating a haunted house type of deal. So it's like, let's see how much CGI we can cram into this fucking movie. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, I read a whole blog post about it because I was so mad. And I was just like, look, they made like a spider look like a bed. They made like all this. They made like a fucking dragon head. It was ridiculous. It's just, they just went like way the fuck over the top.
That movie's coming out, the new version of Turn of the Screw. That might be good.
Now, see, we have seen I'm assuming, I haven't looked anything up about it. There's a new movie coming out. I think it's coming out in January. We've seen trailers for it a couple times.
Yeah.
And it's called The Turning.
The Turning.
Yeah. And I'm watching it. It's got like Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things is in it. And and the actress that's in it playing the nanny, I've seen her. She's in the new Terminator movie too, I think.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what her name is. So she's in this, and I'm watching the preview going, this looks just like Turn of the Screw, or it looks like The Innocents.
Yeah, The
Innocents.
Which
was based on Turn of the Screw.
Innocents scared the shit out of me when I was a kid.
It was scary. That's still a scary movie.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was based on Henry James' Turn of the Screw.
Yeah.
So I'm watching it, and I'm like, this looks just like that. So this must be a new adaptation. And then I see that it's called The Turning, so I'm assuming that that's what it's going to be. It looks good, but it looks good in a way that it could go either really, really right or really, really wrong.
It's going to go Michael Bay. If you ask
me.
See,
that's what's bothering me.
But that's what's selling now.
Not necessarily. I mean...
They're looking for the bucks.
I mean, Midsommar did really well, and look how weird that movie was.
Actually, Midsommar, I think, bombed, didn't it?
Well, I'm not really sure. Well, critically, it did really well.
Critically, it did well.
And, it got a lot of good buzz.
Yeah, but I think at the box office, in terms of money, I don't think Midsommar did
I'm not sure how much it cost to make, so...
Right. Even though I appreciated Midsommar.
And
a lot of guys that I saw that I listened to that did reviews of that on YouTube, they hated that movie, but...
Weird.
Yeah.
I liked Hereditary better.
They're not the same generation as us, though.
Midsommar was awesome.
Midsummer's what you listen to if you're going to sit around and listen to fucking Death in June or
That's what I mean.
Yeah, Death in June or fucking Current 93, listen to David Tibet. You know what I mean? With all that fucking weird fucking Germanic Celtic fucking paganistic goth type, Well,
and here's the thing too. It's like, look, I've been into horror movies since birth, probably. Well, it's for as long as I can remember. Like, because my parents were, very not lackadaisical, but they didn't really care if I watched horror movies or not. So I started watching horror movies at a very young age. So I like all kind of horror movies. I like stupid, gory slasher movies, like just dumb shit. I like super intellectual horror movies. I like, so I like a big, wide variety. So it always I don't know, it always kind of bothers me when people are if you only like one kind of horror movie, I only like slasher movies, or I only like monster movies, or whatever. That's fine. But I do feel like you're missing out on a lot of shit if you're not willing to watch weirder shit or more intellectual shit. Because a lot of times I feel like I like monster movies, I like slasher movies. They're fun to watch, but then you forget about them. A week later, I'm like, did I even see that? Yeah, I think I saw that. I don't really remember anything about it. But when I see something like Hereditary, when I see something like Midsommar, when I see something like The Lighthouse or The Witch or something like that, it's in years later, I still remember that shit. I still remember images from it. I still remember, how it made me feel and stuff. So I think that was far more successful as a movie. Yeah. Because I remember it many years later. Because I see horror movies all the time. I watch them, several of them a week. Most of them are fine, and I enjoy them while I'm watching them, but most of them I don't even remember. Yeah. If I watched them, a couple weeks later, I'd be like, I don't even remember if I saw that, or did I see that? Yeah, I guess I did. You know what I mean? But I don't remember anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, see, we're getting sidetracked on this Halloween shit. We get sidetracked by these fucking movies. We got to go back to the Halloween legends.
We do,
or the Halloween
But I mean,
origins.
The thing about it is that, horror movies, that's still Halloween shit.
Yeah.
And like I said, we will get to people's stories and shit like that eventually. That'll probably be the second half of the show. We're going to read everybody's stories and stuff.
Which for us, that means we're going to do that tomorrow, probably.
We probably will. Like I said, we're going to record this over a couple of days because this is a lot of drinking for us to do at one time.
Yeah, we can all edit it together into a good show, though. People will enjoy it.
Hopefully.
We've been talking shit all night.
Pretty much,
yeah. We've been talking shit all
It's like some of it we had to leave out.
Yeah.
So what were we talking about? So we were talking about Halloween history, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking about...
Halloween has a history.
Well...
There's a history to Halloween.
Everything has a history. You have a history.
Yeah.
I have a history.
Exactly.
I'm sure yours is much more exciting than mine.
No, yeah, well, it's a different...
But,
Why you want to put it that way?
You had a lot more things happen.
Yeah, but you're the artist and writer that brings all this shit to fruition. You know what I'm talking about? That fucking
all of my interesting shit happens
you're gonna,
in my imagination.
You put things together that people actually buy.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Products that people buy and enjoy, and it affects them. I'm not a creator in that way.
Yeah. It's like, it's interesting because, like I said, that's an interesting thing to me too. It's an interesting dynamic because I mean, I have a life. I like do stuff outside of it, but a lot of my life is lived in my imagination.
And in
my head.
Yeah, and you're making
like
stories.
Thinking of shit that I can do and like thinking of different shit I can do. It's just interesting, like interacting with someone that's more external, where I'm almost entirely internal.
Yeah, no, I like to make shit happen.
Well, I do too, but
make shit happen.
Most of it's coming from in.
I miss that fucking that part of me that went out and fucked shit up. You know what I'm talking about? Remember you sent me that damn comic book cover called "Fucking Shit Up"?
Yeah.
So I like to fuck shit up. You know what I mean? You fuck shit up, right. And then what you do shows up on the news. You know what I mean? I like that kind of stuff.
Okay, so just don't murder anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't want to have to come bail you out of jail.
Yeah, everybody else is talking about it, and I'm the one doing it.
So we were talking about Halloween history, right? I mean, like I said, we're getting into horror movies, we're getting into all kind of shit. And like I said, we'll read people's stories and shit like that, too. Mm-hmm. Like I said, we have no plan for this. We have, like...
The plan is in the edit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, I have, like, a bunch of different shit, like, in different, like, note things.
Yeah.
Like, in my notebook and, like, on the screen and shit like that. But I'm just gonna, like, edit it together. I'm not worrying about it right now.
Yeah.
Because I just can't worry about it. So, alright, so where was I with the Halloween history? So we're talking about the Celts, we're talking about Samhain, we're talking about how it was like the transition between kind of the summer, the harvest season, and then like the shitty, like cold weather where nothing was going to happen, like everyone would have to be like inside and shit, but also there was like the veil between the living and the dead was more porous. You could like, the two sides could contact one another for good or for ill. That's also, they think, where the whole costume thing came about, because apparently, and this might have come about a bit later, but there might have been a thing where there was like some people that were dead, and maybe a living person did something bad to them, murdered them, or just like fucked them over somehow before they died. And so, since the veil between the living and dead was so thin, some people were worried that, like, some dead people might come back, like, looking for some supernatural whoop-ass, like, getting a little bit of revenge, something like that. So people were like, well, I'm going to wear a costume so bitch won't recognize me from, like, beyond the grave. It's like, you know what I said? Because, no one wants to get their ass kicked by someone that's, like, coming from beyond the grave, right?
Right.
Because they will probably kick your ass.
Yeah.
Because they have, like, supernatural powers.
Getting your ass kicked from beyond the grave.
Right. It happens.
Okay.
So they think maybe that's where the whole costume thing kind of came from. People like wearing masks so they wouldn't be recognized by dead people that they had maybe fucked over when they were still alive. So, back then they didn't have like fucking Party City or nothing. So they're just like, they're wearing like animal skins and like animal skulls and heads and things like that. So there was also a whole thing with like bonfires and all this other kind of stuff and sacrificial whatnot. So then comes around about 43 AD, the Roman Empire comes along, conquers most of the Celtic territories. Now, they ruled the Celtic lands for about 400 years. Now, during this time, during this 400-year period, there were a couple of Roman festivals also that kind of got tied up with the whole Samhain celebration and kind of would later go on to morph into our more modern Halloween traditions that we see nowadays. Now, there was a festival in the Roman Empire that was called Feralia, which was a day in late October. And that was kind of like a traditional Roman holiday where they would commemorate, dead people, like people that had passed on. And then the second festival was a day to honor their goddess Pomona, who was a Roman goddess of fruit and trees whose symbol was the apple. So they think that maybe this might have been where the whole association, yes, apples are in season in fall, so that might have been a factor also. But, this might have been where the whole apple bobbing thing came. It was like, apples having to do with Halloween and whatnot. So that's probably where that came from the Roman kind of tradition of the goddess Pomona. Now, in 609 BCE, or AD if you prefer, there was one of your popes, Pope Boniface. Boniface? Boniface
yeah.
the Fourth. So he decides, as they did, and they did this with Christmas and Easter also, where they said, well, Christian shit's going to take over, so we're just going to take all your pagan holidays and we're going to incorporate it so you can still celebrate your pagan holidays, but we're going to say it's for something else now. So that's pretty much what they did with the Celtic festival of Samhain and all that type of like similar thing. They said, okay, well, we're going to take this day over. We're going to say that November 1st is All Saints Day, All Martyrs Day, whatever. So we're going to celebrate like all the Christian martyrs. So then as it turned out, like the night before that is All Hallows Eve, the day before All Hallows Day. So that would be Hallow Eve, Hallow Evening, Halloween. So that's where the name came from. Now, as it happened, so by the time, wait a minute, hold on. Let me cut this bit out. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So, 9th century comes around. Christianity is kind of like spread all throughout the Celtic lands. And it kind of blended into and took over a lot of the old Celtic traditions, kind of like made it their own type of thing. And maybe people back then, because they didn't have the internet or Google or nothing like that, but it's like maybe they just thought that's how shit was, because you couldn't like look shit up from back in the you know what I mean, from back in the old days.
It was just it was kind of just like a slow evolution where you know what I mean, Christianity started to kind of take over,
and they just said, oh well, this day has always been the festival of this, and people were like, okay, I suppose so.
The Catholic Church is highly organized, so they knew how to like assimilate non-Christian traditions into their own. They would say, oh yeah, this day that you believe in, yeah, that exists, but Mary's behind that. Yeah, we're going to add some, we're going to glom some other shit on. And I think it happened over generations. We're going to retrofit it. Nobody noticed this.
I don't think they did it. No. I mean, they did do it.
There's a lot of stuff that happened with Germanic cultures and Christianity. A lot of the Germanic peoples had Germanic interpretations of Christianity. And so I don't think it was as a big of a clash as people tend to think it is.
Well, because it was a very slow evolution, like process, you said. And it wasn't like I said, when one generation would die and the next generation would come, it's not like they could look shit up on Google or whatever. A lot of people were illiterate. So it's not like they could be like, oh, well, 100 years ago, this was a pagan festival called Samhain.
People didn't have history.
And they didn't, that's what I mean. So it's kind of like,
no formalized
you didn't
education.
Really get that type of continuation like you would get nowadays, where so it was much easier for them. I'm not saying they didn't do it on purpose, because they did, but I don't think they had a long-term plan for it.
No, the most educated people probably in Europe at this time would be people associated with the Catholic Church,
right?
And even they didn't know everything. Back up at the Vatican, they might have all the books. You know what I mean? That could explain everything. But I guarantee you, there weren't very many people reading those books.
Yeah.
Because there was some badass shit that back in the 1500s, the 1400s, where Catholic priests were sending back entire huge books about the Aztecs and the Mesoamerican cultures and their religions, they would send that back to the Vatican so they could assimilate that knowledge. Those books were never read.
Yeah.
Because the priests didn't care. They had other shit they had to worry about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that was just kind of lost because people didn't care. They were just dealing with the present. Not so much
I can see that.
Not so much the past. So I'm not, whatever. Whatever.
He's like, not even having
it. Yeah, whatever. I'm not having it.
So, all right. So the celebration of Halloween as we know it nowadays probably came to colonial America with the Irish immigrants because they were the ones that still kind of celebrated it in a way. So at the time, there was kind of like a clash between, because that was kind of mostly a Catholic celebration, because you had like a lot of Protestants also in New England. They didn't take too kindly to that type of thing, so they didn't really want to do. They thought that was all satanic and whatnot. So there was kind of some clash there. So it didn't really spread outward until later on. Although it should be noted that because of the influence of like, Irish tradition and like Catholic tradition in New England, particularly in the early, colonial America, they were the ones that kind of brought the stuff about. It sort of evolved once they got to the new continent. It seems like it more evolved in a way of they wanted it to be more kid-based. You know what I mean? So it's also kind of like they would have these big like public events where they were celebrating like the fall harvest and shit. Then they would have like, kind of all people in the neighborhood like getting together and talking about people that had died and stuff like that. There was a big element of like fortune telling because like I said, that was kind of a big thing, even going back to the old Celtic days where women would be like, oh, we're going to like peel apples and like you'd throw apple peels over your shoulder and like hope that it would spell out like the initials of the dude you were going to marry. or they would like do weird mirror games, like, like a little bit like Bloody Mary, but not quite as like scary, where they would like look in the mirror and be like, if I say the right words, like, the face of my husband will like appear behind me in the mirror and shit like that. Yeah. So it was all like these divination type of games.
So women were interested, they were mostly worried about who was going to get married.
Well, yeah.
Who they were going to marry. Yeah.
That was like a big big thing in Halloween because, like I said, it almost seemed like a mediumship type of thing because they said, well, the dead are like right there, like on Halloween, so we can ask them shit about what's going to happen to them with the And you have to think too that like back in the old days, if you were a woman, it's like nowadays you're a woman, you can do pretty much whatever you want. It's
back
like,
then,
you can have
who you were married to.
Back then, it's like you couldn't get a job, you couldn't like have a bank account or nothing like that. So it was like, who am I going to marry? It's like, is he going to have money? Is he going to be a dick? Is he going to beat me up? You know what I mean? So it's like you really had to worry about that kind of stuff. That was kind of like all they had to worry about.
Although, back then, average motherfucker didn't have a bank account.
Well, no,
Only
but I'm
super rich people had bank account. We're talking about peasant women.
Mm-hmm.
They mostly wanted to know who they were married for childish kind of reasons.
Well, is this somebody that not childish? It's practical.
Oh, it's practical, but they were also thinking like, what are the babies going to look like?
Well, not so much that. It's like, look, do they have a farm? Are they going to work? Are they going to be a drunk? Are they going to beat my ass? Are they going to, you know what I mean? So they had practical concerns.
Well, I would think that women within their class were marrying men within their class. And they probably knew the men they were going to marry before they married. They just wanted to know which one. Because you're talking about
it's like, how much does this one suck?
They might have been cool, though. They might have been cool.
I'm sure some of them were.
And chances are you're talking about a town. You're talking about little bitty villages and little bitty towns, whereas a girl probably only had 3 or 4 guys that could possibly marry her.
Yeah.
So she probably knew them all.
Yeah, you probably.
So it's not the same.
If you were a good-looking girl, I mean, it's probably just like nowadays, where it's like if you're plain looking or a little bit ugly or fat or whatever, it's like you're not gonna have your pick. But if you were a good-looking girl,
You were going to get the richer guy.
You maybe had 2 or 3 different suitors you could choose from. So you're just like, well, how much money does this guy have a farm? You know, is he young enough to, like, give me children that are going to work on the farm?
Well, you're also talking about in a time when dowries were involved, and your dad was the one that was really...
like how many goats am I going to get for the shit?
It was your dad that was really doing this business, and you were probably pushing your dad to go for the youngest, best-looking, richest one that was out there.
Well, yeah.
And chances are... you were already naming to your dad, pick this one or this one. Yeah. You get by name, you know what I mean? And he was probably vying for one of those two and trying to cut the deal. Because it was a business transaction.
That's what I mean.
You know?
And even women back then and the parents of the women would have very practical concerns.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, you know, not necessarily, but women could not have jobs of their own. They could have... so everything was passed through the man... so you had to be very super careful about
but you also had to consider that women couldn't have jobs because there weren't jobs. These are farming people.
Well, now the women worked on the farm.
Yeah, everybody was working.
Even the kids did.
Yeah, there weren't really jobs by today's
so it
standards.
wasn't like oh, I'm going to the office. And
they didn't have that
corporate America. Or anything like that. It wasn't like that.
So we gotta be honest about what the situation.
But like I said, so you can understand why they had a lot more practical concerns back then. It's like, is this dude young enough to give me a lot of children that can work on the farm? Does he have money? Can he invest in the farm?
Is his family powerful?
Is his family powerful? Is he a drunk, or what? Is he gonna like run off and leave me? Is he gonna like leave me to work alone? Is he gonna do this and that and the other?
According to most of the things that I was able to fucking read during these time periods, though, things worked out kind of for the times. I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, most things do.
I think probably the biggest difference between today and then was the hygiene. It really is. I think that you're talking about people that didn't have running water.
Yeah.
You're talking about people that didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
It does.
In life, you know. Now, being ex-military, I know what it's like to live without that. You can compensate, but it's just things were not very convenient.
Yeah.
You know? And if you were an indisciplined person or a person from a fucking kind of bad background, it's easy to be a filthy motherfucker under those circumstances.
Well, it's easy to be a filthy motherfucker nowadays.
It is, but imagine back then, when you had to pump your own water. Or you had to go down and get it.
Much easier back then.
Yeah. And
now it's like there's not much excuse.
There's
because
no excuse
you can just pull a thing and there's water. But it's like back then.
Yeah, and even hot water.
You had to like hike down to the fucking pump.
Right, and then you had to heat your own water.
So I can understand people down there just been going, fuck it, I'm not doing that shit today. Yeah. I can understand that.
But I'm of an opinion of, based on personal experience and reading, that I kind of think that as long as people weren't fucking with you, people were very happy back then. Because it was kind of a naturalistic lifestyle.
I don't know, though.
And I think it was they didn't have the same expectations of what you had today. And it was very family oriented. And they didn't worry about governments telling them what to do and passing laws. It all had to do with families. You know, and not wanting to dishonor your family.
Well, everyone was worried about their immediate circumstances. But the thing about it, though, is that...
it was tribal. It's
hard to say, though, because a lot of times people's immediate... like, if all they're worried about is their immediate circumstances, a lot of times, particularly if you worked on a farm or something like that, the immediate circumstances are not good. You know what I mean? There's always weather conditions. So and it's shit that you can't control.
But it was a simpler time. They didn't expect to control shit.
But in another way, too, that's like people's stress levels tend to be much higher when they feel like they can't control things. So I do feel like the fact that nature was kicking your ass all the time, or like shit you couldn't do anything about was kicking your ass all the time, I could see how that would make you a lot more... like unhappy.
But they may have been
because
tough.
You didn't have any
But they may have been tougher. So
Right.
maybe it didn't bother them the same way.
I don't even know if I'd so much call it tougher, but it's just they were just probably beaten down by life because there's like, well, this is how it's going to fucking be. And it's like, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's like you would get to a point where it's like you just quit fighting it because it's like there's nothing you can do.
I don't know. I'm optimistic. I'm not pessimistic on that fact.
I'm just being realistic about it. I'm just saying that's how I would react.
My
in that
time
situation.
in the infantry was a hard time, but it was still, I loved it. You know what I mean? I felt it was, so I think it just depends on the situation. People that couldn't adapt died. All right.
Yeah.
People that could were around, and it didn't bother them.
I mean,
and
I don't know.
I think I have a tendency to think that in general, as long as you weren't being fucked with, I think those old people were happy.
Maybe, but like I said, I wasn't there, so it's.
I think they were happy. What would fuck with you is invading tribes of people or kings trying to tell you what to do and to make you a serf and to force you to till land that wasn't yours, or till land that you really didn't own. You know what I mean? Then you had to give all this shit up to the king. So in other words, I think governments and proto-governments and warlords probably were really your main problem.
But the fact, though, would be that you wouldn't know, like you would know that possibility was out there, but you wouldn't know when it was coming. So I feel like that uncertainty might also be a stressor in itself.
Well, it might have been like a locational situation. Certain people in certain areas were more susceptible to being fucked with.
That's what I mean, because you could never settle exactly, because it's like, well, what if this happened, or what if that happened?
Like there might have been, Russian kulak type peoples, out in the middle of nowhere, who might live 7 or 8 generations without any contact, outside their fucking family and tribe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then there might have been, you know what I mean? So I think it would depend on the situation.
Yeah.
You might have people on in Britain who are right there near, it's a smaller area. They're right there near a bunch of warlords and kings, and they might be being fucked with. But there were other people out in Russia that didn't see anything outside their own family for many generations.
Like I said, I think it would depend on the situation.
Situation.
Because if you were aware of even like the next village over, like being fucked with by someone, like if you knew the possibility that might happen, then that would stress you out. Yeah. And I feel like that would, kind of bite into your happiness, because you would feel like, well, what if that happens here because it happened there and that was only a few miles away.
But you're thinking that you're looking at this from a modern person with access access to history books and knowing the big picture. I think the average person had no knowledge.
Well, but they would have knowledge of what was going on in a village or two over.
Yeah, but that's about it.
So if bad shit happened there, then they would be aware that could happen there also. Yeah. And so the possibility would be open to them. I'm just saying that I don't necessarily think that, ignorance is bliss, as they say, but if you knew a family member, you knew a neighbor, you knew somebody that wasn't that far away from you that had some like fucking fucked up shit happen to them, and you understood that could happen to you also, then I think that would impact your happiness level.
I have a feeling that ignorance is bliss, and in general, people were ignorant. So I think,
but they weren't ignorant of everything.
No, not everything. Just ignorant of what was going on in the world scene.
Sure.
But
there might have been fucked up shit was happening in a local concept.
Mongols may have been invading and fucking taking whole areas, but they didn't know about that.
So I don't know if that was necessary. Like, how widespread was that information? And like I said, if the next village over had gotten fucked over by a disease or by like invaders or something like that, you would know about that. Yeah. So it's not like it was something they didn't know about. Right. They weren't completely ignorant of that.
But they would only be worrying about that within their lifetime.
But that's still like something
things didn't happen very quickly back then. True. So, and the lifespan wasn't that long. So they might, the average person that living out in the fucking boonies on these towns may have only experienced a couple different things in their lifespan. Like, there was a plague over there, And 20 years before that, there were some guys that came and fucking captured some people. We don't know who they were. Yeah. I think there was a lot of that kind of shit going on.
Although the thing, too, is that I think humans have the tendency to concentrate on the negative. So even if something happened 20 years ago, let's say, like if something happened to your grandparents' generation, they would still tell stories about it. So you would still have urban legends about it, and maybe it had even been embellished in the interim. So I do feel like that was something that would impact your daily life. Yeah. Like stories about that. Like I said, I don't think there was ever a time when people were just completely blissful and like unaware and happy about everything. I don't think that's ever happened.
Well, I'm not really saying that.
Humans are not built for that. Humans are, and it's sad, and it sucks, and I hate it. But humans are. I don't want to say designed because we're not designed, but we're just kind of like more apt to remember shit that's negative because that's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, but then
I don't think happiness is a natural human condition. I just don't. It sucks, but I don't think that's
There's a lot of writings that exist from the early history of, the United States back in the 16 and 1700s. And there's a lot of weird shit that was going on back then, and they seem to be kind of upbeat, the writings that have survived. But, in general, they're just they're kind of like, this happened and that happened and oh well. Shit's fucked up.
And, although they weren't all like that. No. Like a lot of shit, particularly from like the fucking colonial period, was a big, huge fucking bummer. Because I did a whole fucking class on that shit, and those people were just like fucking. They were always complaining.
Well, it depends on what period.
That's true.
I mean, you can read stuff that came out of Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin would fucking sit there and bullshit you and tell you all kinds of colorful stories.
Although I think that was just him.
You know what I mean? I think that was realistic for his life, though.
I mean, he was.
And then he'd go down to France and he'd knock down all kinds of women. His
personality was kind of just like he seemed like a very. I mean, I didn't know the dude obviously, but
dude was cool, man.
He seemed like a very upbeat person, and I don't feel like a lot of people were like that because I've read other shit from people from that same era. And it's not like that at all.
Well, I think it depended on your character and your situation.
That's what I'm saying. It's just like nowadays. There's optimists, there's pessimists.
He'd have children out of wedlock and do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, he was having a good time.
He'd go down to France and go, knock down some French girls and wear his fucking little coonskin hats and talk to the damn French king and the aristocracy. And then he'd come back to the United States and fucking... He was a dick slinger, you know what I mean? And there's some guys that are just like that. You know what I mean? Dude, take an air bath. You know what I mean? He's a fucking nudist and shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're dealing with quite a character.
But like I said, I think he was an anomaly, though.
But you had to understand that there was, but you got to look at it this way: there was an environment in which a motherfucker like that could happen.
Yeah. Which
means that it couldn't have been all that bad. I mean, just like today, you can go down and have a great time in Vegas. You can have a great time in L.A. You have a great time in fucking New York, and there's still bad shit happening in some.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
So I think it was just like, in some ways, like today.
There's no difference.
Yeah, in some ways.
I mean, humans are the same. Some people are optimists. Right. Some people are pessimists. Right. I think in general, and this is a very general statement, but I think in general, people have evolved to be a little more pessimistic. They've evolved to pay more attention to negative type of things just because that's a survival mechanism. But that doesn't, mean that some people aren't optimists.
Yeah.
And don't see the best in everything because they do.
I'm going to get Buddhist with you and just say life is what you make it.
In some cases.
Life is what you focus on.
Yeah. In most cases, that is true.
Yeah.
I mean, life is going to shit on you in various ways. But how you react to it is pretty much all you can do about it.
Yeah.
So you have to think long and hard about how you're going to react to it.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of all you can do. I mean, you know what I mean? You're just like a little person and Yeah. So, we were talking about Halloween history.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking about how the Irish immigrants came here and brought all their, like, traditions and shit like that.
Yeah, traditions and shit like that.
Well, yeah. Well, I was watching a documentary about it earlier, and the interesting thing about it is they said, here's the funny thing. Like I said, you had the whole Catholic Protestant thing, which was going on. And then you had, very early on, the Halloween traditions, particularly in the 20s and 30s. It was almost kind of like a mafia protection racket, in the sense of trick-or-treat being... It used to be like a literal thing. It's like kids would come to your house and be like, give me some money or some candy or something,
Right.
or I will fuck your shit up.
Yeah, that is like a mafia thing.
Which, yeah, it was exactly like that.
Yeah, it's like, pay up. I'll fuck you
right,
up.
or I'll egg your house or toilet paper the house.
Yeah,
or,
it made sense.
Or set your house on fire. Whatever they did in the 30s. I'm sure it was probably worse than whatever they do now.
No, it wasn't that bad. I'm sure it wasn't that bad.
Well, I don't know. Was it? It's the 30s.
I think it was all fun and games. I think it was fun and games.
But in a way, like, that's how kind of like trick or treat evolved. It was essentially a protection racket that evolved into something like a lot more lighthearted.
It was like a paranormal protection racket.
We'll protect you from the demons.
Yeah.
If you just give us some pennies or some candy or
and
whatever
we're the demons.
If whatever it is that you have. So yeah, so that was where that whole tradition came from. And then after that, around the 1950s, when everything started to be more like family-oriented and all that kind of shit, it kind of started to go in a more kid-like direction. Oh, it's like, it's more kid-focused and they can go trick-or-treating and like the adults don't have anything to do with it anymore. It lost like a lot of its pagan associations, even though it still had a lot of the pagan trappings because you still had the whole, dressing up in costumes thing because you didn't want like spirits to recognize you and whatnot. So you still had that whole thing going on. But that's where a lot of our traditions came from. As I said, it's kind of like... It seems like it's almost kind of like... I mean, yeah, the whole, like, takeover of Catholicism, Christianity, blah, 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 that kind of, like, made it a lot more widespread. But it does seem like the American tradition, because it does seem like we're kind of, like... the main country that other countries celebrate it, but in America, it's like huge.
Yeah, you have to understand something, people. American white people are mostly Irish people.
I am as well.
We descended from the Irish.
And
they're like fucking 10 times as many Irish people or in America than there are in Ireland. Because once you let those psychopathic Irish loose in a place like this, they reproduce in vast numbers.
We just fuck everything up.
Yeah, we fuck everything up, and we kind of take over, and because we don't have any rules. And, those fucking psychopathic that psychopathic genome that worked during that potato famine, that thrived over here. And that's why America is the way that it is. Fucking psychos.
That might be one of the reasons.
Yeah, so a lot of the Irish things, and I would probably say Scotland and to some extent England, that worked over here. And it proliferated. And, a lot of the Irish descendants took on English names to hide the fact that they were Irish.
Yes.
So not everybody... Not all, like my last name is Ross. That could be English or Irish. But there were other people that had Mick names, started with MC Mick. All right. A lot of those vanished in exchange for English-sounding names to hide the fact that you were fucking nuts.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, it's weird because back in the old days, of very early American immigration, it seems like Irish people were almost seen like a different race, kind of.
Little monkey people is how they were fucking described a lot in the newspaper.
It's very strange because now I don't think people make that distinction. But back in the old days, because like I said, my mom's side of the family is Irish, my dad's side of the family is Native American, so it's like I'm not...
As it was generally described by the media back in that era, the men, little monkey people, the men... good for only thievery and crime.
Yeah.
The women only good for prostitutes.
Like some job postings specifically said no Irish.
Yeah.
No Irish.
Right. But the Irish proliferated. And
they did in a lot of Irish traditions, like kind of, particularly in New England, but they kind of like spread around the whole country.
And they crossbred with everyone. Anglo-Americans, they crossbred with them.
Native Americans.
Native Americans, Afro-Americans, a lot of black people actually are part Irish. They don't know it, but some of them do. I've talked about them, but when you look at black people in the United States, a lot of them, even going back hundreds of years, are biracial, and they're a mixture. The white parts of them are Irish and German.
A lot of German influence.
A lot of German, yeah. So
German and Norwegian influence, particularly in the Midwest. I feel like that's kind of the biggest.
There aren't, for the most part, some black people are gonna fucking, they're gonna love what I'm saying because they know it's true. Other black people want to deny it. There aren't any real pure African people to speak of in the United States. They're all part white.
Well, everyone's mixed.
Yeah, everyone's kind of mixed.
Everyone that was born here anyway.
Right. And they go down to New Orleans area. They're mixed a lot with the French. But everywhere else, your black people are part Irish, part German.
Yeah, and
in general.
Like I said, that's cool.
Just the way it is. That's the way it rolled.
Humans are humans. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
Honestly.
That's just the way it went down.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it happened. So, like I said, there's kind of a lot of particularly shit that came out of, and I feel like the Irish had like maybe like an influence far surpassing their population numbers, maybe because they were so prevalent in colonial America and in that early period. And then it kind of like proliferated throughout the rest of the country.
Mid-1800s era of the robber barons, they just used the Irish up. Our railroad system is just littered with the bodies of the dead Irish.
Yeah.
They'd pull them right off the...
Chinese
and
also.
The dead Chinese, too. They'd pull them right off the boats and work them to death.
Yeah.
Literally work them to death. Yeah. And then there would be Irish uprisings in the middle of this dam, building these railroads, and corporate paid mercenaries would just mow them down. There were certain and left unrecorded. There have been times where on the sides of these railroads they'd find like 300 to 400 fucking dead bodies on the side of the dam.
Well, yeah, because
Irish people,
even more than nowadays.
Yeah.
Which, it feels like, you're just a corporate cog or whatever.
Right,
but it's like back in the old days, they would just like kill you and like bury you in an unmarked grave and no one would ever like even know
it wasn't
passing.
Racism was part of it, but you also have to understand that some of the robber barons were Irish.
It was more classism.
It was more like classism.
Which is related in a lot of ways, but not always.
No, not really. Fucking the United States was a ruthless place. It was about money and power, and Carnegie, I think, was the Irish one, and he killed a lot of his own here.
He did, yeah.
They didn't really care about race that much.
Like I said, it was more a class issue.
Yeah, some people have said that black slaves were worth something. They were worth money. The Irish weren't worth anything.
Yeah.
They just fucking... You could find Irish just starved to death or just fucking worked to death.
There were some Irish people in indentured servitude also.
Yeah, right, which was...
Germans too.
Yeah, you had Irish slaves. And the English had Irish slaves back in England.
I mean, it wasn't to quite the same extent or quite the same, but there was some of that going on.
Nowadays, black slavery is remembered because it was between two different races.
Well, and because it was so widespread also. It was much more widespread.
And it was agricultural slavery, which is remembered. Irish slavery was different because it was happening sometimes between Irish people or English enslaving Irish, and it wasn't agricultural and it wasn't always permanent. It was something. Some of them were.
It was an indentured servitude.
Sure. It was like something that
Like, you were supposed to, like, work for somebody
work
for
your way
X
out
amount
of
of time until you paid off whatever
You-
debt that
Even
had or
though
whatever.
reality of those days, it usually meant you died before
Right,
you
sure.
worked your way out of it because of disease and
Yeah,
starvation.
like I said. And in that sense, it was a lot more classist because it's like, you know, you were kind of the bottom of the food chain. So, like, what are you going to do? Like, you don't have any money and we do.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it.
The realities of history are far more interesting than the fucking myths of history. Read your shit.
Yeah.
Read your shit.
Like I said, it's always more complicated.
It's more
and
complicated.
the thing about it is, like, I can't blame history classes or something because they have a lot of shit to cover, and it's like they have to kind of like they have to simplify shit just so people can learn the shit. But it's like, if you go into, and I mean, you really have to like specialize in one fucking era if you really want to get into it. But everything ever is like much more nuanced.
Yeah. If you were to really look at history by today's standards and fucking put that back on what was happening in the past, we were all slaves. We were all fucking slaves.
Well, all of us that didn't have any money.
Yeah. If you didn't have any money, you were a fucking slave.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And like I said, no one's life was easy. I mean, people that had a shit ton of money, comparatively, their lives were very easy.
Yeah.
As they always are.
It goes
But
back,
if you don't have money, your life sucks.
Yeah.
Always and forever. Like
And
back
this-
to the beginning of the time.
And this went all the way back to the Roman era.
That's what I mean. It's,
you know, fucking it. The Romans,
since before recorded history.
Yes,
Man.
the Romans were all about status. If you were not a patrician, then you were a fucking slave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just the way it was.
And like I said, and this is kind of going
And they
back.
looked at you crazy. If there was something wrong with you, if you had any kind of fucking physical abnormalities, if you were of a lower class, then that meant that was on you. This whole concept.
Yeah, you did something.
You did something. It didn't have any. There was no concept of equality in the, in the
there's
Roman
still,
era.
and I feel like there's still like a lingering thing of that. But I mean, it's obviously not as bad as it was, but there's still like a lingering thing where if something's the matter with you, like if you have like a birth defect, for example, like people, there's still like a lingering thing where people think maybe you did something to deserve
your ancestors,
that, or
and your genes, maybe.
But it's like, and that's bad. But it's like a long time ago, it was way worse because everyone believed that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Like
if you
now
were born with a fucking peg leg or a fucking stump for
or a
leg,
club foot or something like that.
It's because your ancestors did some shit. The gods didn't like
so
you.
obviously you're a horrible person.
You're
So
a
we
bad
can just
person.
treat you like crap and like you're walking down the street.
And if you weren't born rich from a patrician family, it's just because it's because you were inferior.
Right, you deserve it.
And because your ancestors were inferior.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of this whole thing, that's one of the great things about America. You know what I mean? The concept of equality and that we are all human beings and that we should all have equal access to the law and the rules. This is a fucking uniquely American concept, really.
Yeah, it doesn't work in practice, but I mean, the concept is good.
The concept was there. Back in our ancestors, it was just like, well, if you're ugly, it's because you're fucked up.
Like the gods hit you
the
with
guy,
that stick that
they
have.
Exactly. Which
that ugly stick.
They were, you're ugly, so that means you suck.
Seriously,
you're weak, so therefore you suck.
Even my grandparents, and that's only 2 generations ago, and my grandparents were awesome, but like even they would say stuff like, "Oh, they got hit with the ugly stick," and like that, and that was like a moral judgment.
Yeah.
Like if you were born ugly.
Yeah.
Then obviously...
Well, your ancestors were ugly, and your ancestors were ugly for a certain
reason. Well, then obviously
reason.
there was something the matter with them, so we can...
Because they weren't as good
consequently,
they weren't as good as pretty motherfuckers.
We can treat you...
Exactly.
As inferior.
You're subhuman.
Right.
Yeah.
We can treat you as inferior.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel like there's still like a lingering factor of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's something that's hard to get over,
you can see that shit on Instagram with these pretty motherfuckers taking pictures of themselves about how awesome they fucking are, and the fucking girls putting their booties in the camera, and you don't have a booty like this, and fucking... It was that same mentality, really.
It's a very human thing to be attracted to, like, attractive people, obviously.
That's what it was.
But... I do feel like when you make the extent, when you kind of go like the further step and say, well, you're making a moral judgment against someone because they're not as good looking as someone else, then that is problematic.
Yeah. Well, what they were doing is they were taking it one step further.
That's what I'm saying.
So we're pretty and you're not pretty.
Right.
And because you're not pretty because you suck.
Because the gods
yeah. And then they're gonna,
the gods frown upon you.
You suck because the gods don't like you.
Right.
That's what they were doing.
That's what I mean.
And because the gods don't like you, we don't like you
then
either.
I don't have to like you.
Then I don't have to like you. And that means we're going to make you do whatever we say.
Right.
So, the U.S. Constitution and Americanism, and in a certain sense, the French to a certain way within the era of Enlightenment, was to get away with that, to get away from that kind of shit, and to judge a human individual based upon their behavior and their character,
actions, by their character,
and what so that was the new era of Enlightenment.
Which that's a good thing.
It's a lot better.
It is a lot.
It's a lot better. It's a lot better.
Because you can't seriously. I've known a lot of like good-looking people that have really,
assholes
that have really sucked hard.
Yeah, assholes. Yeah. But they were assholes back then.
That's what I mean.
They were assholes back then.
You could just get away with it because it's like, look at this face.
That's the way it was.
That's what I mean.
I'm pretty. I'll fuck you up. And I got money.
Exactly.
I'm your god.
You can't do anything about it.
I'm built like the gods.
Right.
That was the thinking of the time.
Yeah. That's one. Yeah.
In other words, it was Mean Girls.
That's exactly what it was. It was like
Girls.
Mean Girls, like 16th, 17th century edition.
Yeah. Well, it went all the way back to the fucking BC period.
But yeah. It's going all the way back. And
with
like
the Greeks. But that doesn't mean that... Well, let me tell you... Let me straighten these motherfuckers out. That doesn't mean that beauty is not something to aspire to. And that health is not something to aspire to.
Well, yeah, it is. It's like, obviously, everyone wants to look their best. Everyone wants to feel their best. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying everyone should be a big fan of
No. And being a motherfucker that works out...
And don't bathe and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Obviously.
You should, for yourself, try to be the best version of yourself.
Right. Don't feel like you have to
abuse other people because they're not as good looking as you.
Yeah, because like I said, there's only so much you can do within your. I mean, And
here's another thing: some of the most brilliant minds in the world were ugly.
Right, that's what I mean.
And
so you can't shit on people like because of what they look like, because that person, like, look at Stephen Hawking, for Christ's sake.
Right, exactly. He's in a wheelchair.
He's not an ugly man, but he's like, he's sick he got shit on by a horrible disease, like early in his...
Einstein was not
and he's like the smartest dude on earth.
And Einstein was not a cute motherfucker either, but he came up with a bunch of great things.
And he helped everybody.
He helped
everybody.
Everybody can contribute.
Right. So it's like, that's why you can't be that way.
Right.
You can't be that way.
Right. And had you left this up to the ancient Romans, some of these other ugly motherfuckers would have been cut out of the picture. Although Archimedes, they never said how Archimedes looked per se, but the genius of Archimedes was accepted in the Greco-Roman period.
So he must have been good looking.
Maybe, maybe not. He was a genius. Socrates evidently said he had eyes like a crab.
Okay, so maybe he wasn't ugly. So maybe they gave him kind of an exception.
So what you're getting to is that in the ancient era, you may have been able to talk your way out of that shit.
If you were smart enough. But if you were like smart but not quite as smart as Archimedes, then you were fucked.
Right.
Then you were fucked.
Or Archimedes, or what was his name?
You had to be, like I said, you had to be like super smart and super good looking. And if you weren't, then you were kind of hosed.
So the Age of Enlightenment, I think, was an advancement for
mankind. That's what I mean. And that's why this is, that's something that I kind of like look up to a lot. Like that kind of, because that was kind of the first time in history that people were like, hey, there's
more to people than what you see on the surface.
Right. Maybe you shouldn't just be looking at that, because it's like people have other things to contribute. Everyone has something to contribute.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's why that's a good thing. So, getting back to, like, the Halloween history shit, it's like, basically we have the Celts and also kind of, like, a couple of the popes that Christianized all the Celtic shit to, like, thank for all of our Halloween traditions. Oh, there's, like, some American shit, like, spun on it as well. But it all kind of came from that early.
America picked up a lot of these old European holidays, and we commercialized them, including Christmas. Really, Christmas was kind of like a dead thing. Really,
well, and even
when
like
America got a hold of that.
When the Protestants were kind of like in charge of shit, they kind of like banned Christmas in a lot of areas because they thought it was like a pagan.
All this stuff about
which it is.
All this stuff about Santa Claus and the red suit and shit like that. You know, that's Coca-Cola.
Yeah,
it was the Coca-Cola company that really.
I mean, it's recent, but it harkens back to like old like Scandinavian like legends
Coca-Cola
and shit.
was talking about that, but it was kind of an invented holiday by American corporations But I'm not saying it's bad. Some people are like, oh man, you're fucking
I love Christmas.
Right. You know, Coca-Cola had a good idea. They're like, there was this thing.
Of course, I'm an atheist too, but it's like I love Christmas. I love Christmas.
Shit, Japan loves Christmas, and they're not Christians.
How can you not love Christmas?
It's just a good celebration. It was
cold weather. It's like
the Coca-Cola Corporation,
hot chocolate, feast, presents. Yeah. How can you not love that? It's awesome.
The Coca-Cola Corporation was was really a huge part of Christmas.
Well, they had their finger on the pulse of the culture at that point.
Bringing back Santa Claus and stuff.
And like I said, I'm as anti-corporate as the next person, but you have to like think too that sometimes corporations are kind of plugging into the cultural zeitgeist at the time. So it wasn't always, yes, maybe because they had like a large cultural reach. That's like, maybe that's why. But I don't think that we should like shit on it just because that's where like the past of it was.
They wanted to bring back a family thing and an Anglo-American thing. And it was a way of making money, but it was also a way of bringing back families. It was a family day.
Yeah, which is, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, the same thing happened with Halloween. Right. It's like if some people are like pissed off, because it had pagan origins, or some people are pissed off because it had Christian origins. It doesn't matter. It's like, look, you are just you and you are living at this present time. It's like you are free to take or leave whatever tradition you would like from this particular celebration. It's like if you don't like the corporate aspects of Halloween or you don't like the corporate aspects of Christmas, you don't have to do that. You can just like do what you want with it.
Yeah, when you go back in time to the Roman era when Christianity started to fucking become a prominent force in Rome, it was corporate in a way. It was corporate for the
That's
day.
what I mean. Everything is.
Everything's like that.
It's like, it sucks, but like everything is kind of top down. Yeah. Because they're the ones with the power, so...
Yeah, there was money behind it.
Everything is kind of like influenced by them. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy things on their own merits. Like, if you enjoy Christmas, or you enjoy Halloween, or you enjoy certain traditions of it, then just enjoy that. You don't need like an excuse for it.
And ancient Roman Christianity, during the first couple hundred years of it, and once the empire picked it up, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a way of reunifying the empire and to give a new culture to the Roman people, who were basically kind of had a diverse background. The time of the Roman gods had passed. They had to have something to replace it with.
Yeah.
And it makes sense when you go back into those days. Listen to Dr. Robert M. Price. He'll tell you all about that period and everything we know about it. It wasn't a bad thing. It still isn't really a bad thing. You just have to... It behooves you to kind of understand what it is.
Well, like I said,
and to go out and hate it, why would you go out and hate it?
Even if you don't like the origin of it,
right?
If you like some aspects of it, then there's no reason that you just can't take those aspects of it and just make your own shit out of it. No one's stopping you from doing that.
And over the millennia, people have taken up Christianity and done what they wanted with it. That doesn't mean that's what Christianity was.
Right.
There's been a lot of organizations over the time and different places that have had their own interpretations, and they've riffed on it for their own gain. But that's just how their life is.
That's what I mean. That's just how shit goes. And like,
yeah.
I'm not super worried about. I mean, yeah, you got to worry about some shit that happened a long time ago because it's still relevant to an extent. But it's like, in some ways, particularly in the way that you live your life and the way that you celebrate, you know, your occasions and things like that. It's like, I'm not really that worried about it. It's like, look, I'm an atheist. I'm the biggest like atheist that ever atheisted, but I love Christmas. I love trees. I love the presents. I love like the whole like gestalt around Christmas. It's like, I don't give a shit about Jesus. I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't give a shit about like the religious trappings of it, but I just like the whole aesthetic of it. I like the whole idea of it. It's like, oh, goodwill toward men. Like that's awesome. I like that.
That's what it always was.
That's what I mean. And it's like, you know, if you want to see that as like me going back to the pagan roots of it, that's cool too. But it's because it kind of is.
That's what it was.
That's what I mean. So it's like, I like that aspect of it. And it's like, if somebody wants to shit on me for celebrating it just because I don't believe in all that Jesus-y stuff, then that's...
All religions...
That sucks because...
All religions were products.
Yeah.
And there was always something behind it, or a force, or a group that was behind it that had their own, you know... They kind of had their own motives.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the product that they were selling was bad.
Right. That's two distinct...
There was a lot...
That's two distinct issues.
There's a lot of good things in in Western culture. They're enjoyable. The message behind them was good. Yeah, some people like abused Christianity. But that doesn't mean that Christianity itself was bad. It just... Everything depended on the specific situation.
And like I said...
And the people involved.
And particularly nowadays, I feel like you can kind of pick and choose the best things about shit.
Right.
Just to kind of tailor things to way you like them.
And they were doing that back then. Yeah. That's not new. Like, they were doing that shit back then.
Especially nowadays, it's like no one's going to shit on you for celebrating Christmas however you want to celebrate it.
It's just like Islam. You have different interpretations of that. There are some people that take that shit totally seriously. You know, a lot of my family came up in Iran, you know, fucking during... Yeah, a lot of people don't know but my family history. My granddad ended up working for the Shah of Iran in Isfahan, you know, for Grumman Aerospace. You know, this is back in the 70s when we were making F-14 Tomcats for the fucking Shah. And all my aunts grew up in Iran. And... Islam is very similar to that. You can be real hardcore with Islam and turn it into something that, you know, literal and try to enforce fucking old-fashioned laws, and then you end up with ISIS. Or you could take Islam and do what we do with it and just kind of fucking interpret it.
Just kind of like take what you like with it. Just like all the shit you don't like, just, we're not going to talk about that.
Or you can go all spiritual and become like the Sufi, you know. Because we know certain people that have Islamic backgrounds that are up in the club with us drinking alcohol. Is that fucking...
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not a big deal to them. Like, they're still Muslims, but they're still Muslim.
They're Muslims in the way that a lot of Christians are out there doing.
That are Christians, sure.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's what I mean. And I don't... It's
not cut and dry.
And like I said, I don't see any problem with that whatsoever.
It has to do with your
heritage. You can take what you want from it.
I mean, when I was in Egypt, I was, you know, discussing religion with Bedouin in down the Sinai Peninsula. And we're talking about Christianity and Islam. And they're listening to me and they're like, well, if you're not a Christian fundamentalist, why don't you become a Muslim? Which is a Muslim way of looking at things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you don't do that. I'm like, Christianity is a cultural tradition. And as soon as I said tradition, and I said, your father, and I'm telling this to an old Muslim guy, I said, your father was Muslim, right? And he said, yeah. He says, your grandfather was Muslim, right? And I said, you wouldn't go to Christianity, would you? He's like, no, because it's not in your family tradition. And then as soon as they started seeing it that way, they're like, yeah, right. It has to do with tradition more than anything else, whether you follow it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said...
those dudes were not fucking devout Muslims fucking doing the shit.
Like I said, we know a lot of people that are culturally Muslim that do shit that quote unquote Muslims don't do, like drink alcohol.
Yeah.
Or, they do all
yeah,
that.
They do everything we do.
Like I said, they're the same kind of shit that like most people that would say they were Christians, but then they do a lot.
Yeah, but don't for one second think that fundamentalism is not dangerous. Fundamentalism of any kind is dangerous.
But like I said, fundamentalism of anything
of any kind is dangerous.
Is bad.
Yes.
Like whatever religion it is, whatever anything it is.
You can look at the statistics and you can interpret it for yourself. Fucking Islam is a young religion and the motherfuckers are act up. Because that's just the way young religions are. Religions fucking have a certain
like I said,
lifespan.
and you see like the kind of, it's not as prevalent in this culture because it's been around longer.
It's been around so long, people.
But you do see your fundamentalist Christians doing the similar kind of shit.
I'm Christian. I'm Christian friendly, and we're out waiting to go into a club, and I'll have a Christian fundamentalist yelling at us about how evil we are. These motherfuckers don't know us.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
so it's the same kind of mindset. Right. It just depends on what kind of culture you grow up in. It's like what you're attracted to.
Right.
But I do feel like I said, I feel like it's good nowadays because I do feel like people are more accepting of, I would like to, take this, that, and the other thing from this religious tradition or, a traditionally religious tradition and incorporate that into my life, even though I'm not of that religion. And that's fine. I don't think people are bothered by that.
Human beings have a genetic inclination towards religion. If they don't have a religion, they'll make one.
Well, not even so much religion, but tradition. That's a tradition.
That's what religion is.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of traditions, memes based upon morals and stories, and that's what religion is. You know what I mean? Everyone kind of makes up a moral system. They make up tales. They make, you know what I mean? Memes that have certain moral implications, and all religions are basically like that. In the case of Islam, it's not just the Quran, it's the Hadith and the Sunnah. And when you're talking about the Hadith, there's also a legal system that goes along with it, which is something that, a lot of people that are Christians don't fucking
we don't really have that anymore. We don't have that anymore.
Imagine you had something like the New Testament along with the Old Testament, and then a law book that was pulled out of the Old Testament. It would be a different, it would change it would be a whole different dynamic. We in the West, you kind of have our version of the Hadith would be church law.
Yeah. Which
would be like, say, the laws of the Catholic Church about, saying rosaries and how many, how many Hail Marys or whatever it is you have to say, and what the punishments for certain things are. So we kind of have it, but it's just, those are denominational rules. And so,
it's kind of lost a lot of its allure in
I guess it depends
this culture.
I guess it
depending
depends on
who you're talking to.
Right.
I mean, like I said, it's hard to extrapolate across Americans as a rule because, there's so much diversity.
We're 50 different states, and our states are the size of European countries or bigger. So it's kind of hard.
Well, and even within the states,
there's fucking different.
There's huge diversity between the depending on what neighborhood you live in and shit like that. Right. So it's always hard to like I said, extrapolate against across large populations because people are so different in their beliefs.
I mean, in the place in Mississippi where my dad came from is Jones County. Jones County has a history itself that they made movies about.
Yeah, they did.
You know what I mean? What was the name of that movie that had what's his name from?
I saw it was called Free State of Jones.
Free State of Jones, and to this day, Jones County
Netflix
is called the Free State of Jones.
Yeah.
And they're talking about Newt Knight, who was the leader of Free State of Jones during the, because you see where my dad came from, the county of Jones waged war against the Union and the Confederacy.
They weren't having either one.
No, it changed. You know what I mean? The Civil War from the Confederate point of view was a rich man's war, defending plantations, which was kind of against the average farmer, because the plantations were like our version of big corporations. Right. And you know what I mean. They were kind of against your sharecroppers. And Newt Knight, who was the leader, had a black wife. So there were people that were mating with black sharecroppers. So it was not a fucking... Our history was a lot more complicated than Northern, and we'll call these Yankee motherfuckers. These Yankee motherfuckers didn't really understand our history that well.
Well, like I said, everything
was far more complicated.
Everything is far more complicated, always, when you look more into it.
Yeah, but you see the Free State of Jones, you'll understand. And it was fucking Jones is a wild place.
Yeah.
And in Heidelberg, where my dad lives, he's basically the last living white man. Because Heidelberg is now a black town. And, you know, they love my dad. I told you, but, you know, when he was up there in the hospital dying...
Your dad's adorable.
The neighbors were visiting him, you know, bringing him turkey necks and shit like that. It's like, I told you.
And he thought they put them in his chest.
Thought he put turkey necks in his chest. My dad was hallucinating as he was... They put turkey necks in my chest. No, long story. But,
I don't remember what episode we talked about that on, but...
Yeah.
That was such a good... I've met your dad. Like, he came here to visit us, like, over one holiday.
Yeah.
And I could just imagine...
Right.
Because you do his voice really well.
Yeah.
So I can imagine...
seeing oblivion.
Yeah, I could imagine, like, how that went down. Because he went away for, like, 2 weeks. Because, like I said, a long time ago, like, when I did the shows by myself, he went away for 2 weeks, like, visiting his dad, getting, like, a heart bypass.
Country black Mississippi, like in Heidelberg, it's old German town, but all the Germans are gone now. Country black Mississippi is now experiencing the 1950s. They all got cars. They go to high school. They fucking hang out at the Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? They're having a good time. It's, you know what I mean? They're experiencing the 1950s American dream in Heidelberg. Yeah, but it's all black people this time around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Because you know all the old style housing projects became obsolete.
Yeah.
And all the white people died off in those little towns, and the houses didn't cost much. So the black people moved into them, and they lived a normal suburban country lifestyle that the white middle class came from.
Yeah.
It's very much 1950s. You know? Fucking we're driving around in cars with fucking convertibles and making out, fucking going to the drive-in, and they're having
we all did back in the day.
Just like we went on. Yeah, it's not like a hood type situation that you would have in an urban environment. This is a country environment, and that's where a lot of the U.S. Army's coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the guy that takes care of my dad across the street is a U.S. Army guy, he's a sergeant.
Yeah.
Him and his wife.
That's right. You told me that.
Yeah, they're my age.
Yeah.
And their children, you know, and my dad takes their children out hunting and fishing. They fucking love him. He's like a granddad. The white granddad.
White granddad.
White granddad.
That feels like it should be a movie.
Yeah. I haven't really met them. They were from another era, so when I go back and see them, I'll have to... I met him at the hospital, but I didn't meet him back at Heidelberg, right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, you know...
I'm too young to go back to Heidelberg. We got this beautiful place here. I don't need to go back to Heidelberg.
Yeah,
it's a little bitty house, you know what I mean? Well, it's not really compared to this. You know what I mean?
It's like, it's not like we live in like the hub of like cultural vanguard or anything like that. It's like we live in Orlando.
Orlando's
like
pretty outside of Orlando. Cool, though.
But Orlando is pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's like it's at least a decently sized city. You know, they have nightclubs. They have like cool shit here.
It's Disney, so it's the new Hollywood in a certain way.
Sort of.
A lot of people we know are.
It's not like Manhattan or nothing like that, but it's like, you know, there's cool shit here. There's
the other Hollywood.
Yeah.
And a lot of people we know are kind of entertainers.
Yeah. There's cool shit here.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if I would ever...
I can't go back there.
That's what I mean. I don't know if I'd ever get... And I'm not saying, like, not when I'm, like, fucking 90 years old, that it's like, yeah, I won't mind, like, living in some, like, backwater...
I'm my final years.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not saying that because that's a long time away.
Yeah.
But... at this stage of my life, yeah, I'm almost 50 and stuff like that, but it's like, I don't really want to be like somewhere where there's like no nightclubs or anything. That would like really like freak me out.
I predict 30 years from now or 20 years from now, there's going to be a new generation of African Americans coming from places like Heidelberg, Mississippi, which were the backwoods where they experienced a 1950s style culture. They're going to be the ones that are going to fucking they're going to do a really good job in places like Hollywood. That's where the future fucking Steven Spielbergs and shit are going to come from.
Maybe so.
There could be some of those guys. Because
I could see that happening.
They're coming up the same way
that
our ancestors came up.
That Steven Spielberg likes. Right. Like, that kind of like small town, middle America type of thing.
Americana and all that. That's the way they're coming.
So we might see like a new renaissance and that sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
And it's going to be like a trip because they're black, which we don't associate. Our generation doesn't associate that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which is weird. Like, I don't know. It's weird that we don't, but.
It's weird that we don't, but we don't.
Yeah.
Not really. But they're coming. That's going to be kind of the new generation. I mean, there are some of them now from the suburban areas.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the fucking country areas that are in the 1950s, living the American dream.
Yeah.
They're very optimistic.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Now I kind of want to go there and see what.
Yeah, they're not.
I don't know if I need to go there because I think I can imagine it because I grew up in a pretty like.
They're not a spoiled people. You know what I'm talking about? They're very much kind of like a salt of the earth, middle class people, the same kind of people that the Spielberg era and other 1950s type people came from. That's what they're like. So it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know how maybe the internet might.
That's what I mean. I do feel like that's kind of like a big democratizer.
Yeah, it's not the quite same situation as before.
In the same way, but to a much larger extent as like television was.
Right.
In the early 1950s.
Right. They have more knowledge than we had.
It's like a different situation. And like we were talking about this the other day, it's like I feel like in some ways like some people try to extrapolate like, oh, X, Y, and Z happened in history, so it's going to happen again because history does tend to be like cyclical to an extent.
Yeah.
But
technology is a factor in
that's history. What I mean. I feel like there's too many like contingencies, particularly around technology, particularly nowadays, and it's like so I don't know if you can like predict how things are going to go
Information can be a corrupting factor. It kind of destroys local cultures. You end up with a damn national or.
But you might get a better thing on the other end. It's like it's kind of like it's like a give and take.
Just have to see.
It's like everything else. It has a bad side and a good side. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So okay, so we were talking about Halloween.
Yeah.
So I was talking a little bit about the history of Halloween. I wanted to talk a little bit too before I want to get into some more horror movie reviews too. We're gonna do like stories in the second half of the show, but I want to talk a little bit about Halloween urban legends, specifically the urban legend that some motherfucker is out there poisoning candy on Halloween. Now, this has been a persistent rumor since what? At least the 1970s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember hearing in the 1980s, but I was like growing up in the 1980s. And it's interesting to note because this urban legend, it's an urban legend. Mm-hmm. This has literally never happened except one time. And the one time that it happened, it was a dad poisoning his own kid's candy. And like putting the shit in the kid's candy bag.
Try to knock that kid off.
He did.
Damn.
But they caught him.
Okay.
Well, what he was trying to do, like what he did, and this happened in 1974. This wasn't even like all that recent.
I remember this story.
Yeah. So his name was Ronald O'Brien, right? And he put cyanide in pixie sticks.
Yeah.
And then when his kids came back from trick-or-treating, so it wasn't like a stranger giving them candy that was poisoned or had razor blades in it or nothing like that. They came back from trick-or-treating. He had put cyanide in their fucking pixie sticks. And then he surreptitiously put it in their candy bags. Now, 2 of the kids didn't eat it because apparently they didn't like pixie sticks. But the one son did eat it and he died. Now, they caught the guy. Like I said, they figured out it was the dad, like, pretty quickly. He got put in prison, and he got, like, put to death in, like, 1984. I think he got, like, put in the electric chair. Or,
what was his motive?
Insurance money.
Okay.
He was trying to kill all 3 of his kids, apparently. But he was trying to blame it on, because by 1974, that urban legend had spread so, it was so widespread that, like, poison in the candy, that he was using that to get away with it. Yeah.
He wasn't thinking right, because if somebody actually were to do that, it wouldn't hit just his kids. It would hit a bunch of kids.
That's what I mean. You would
so the cops would be like,
well, it's a good thing that he didn't do that, because he would have, like, killed a bunch of strangers and shit like that.
The cops would have been like, nah.
But this, it bothers me, because this is one of those things that's like, and we talked about this like a long time ago on our Satanic Panic show. This is kind of one thing where you take something that sounds, I mean, on its surface, it sounds pretty plausible.
Right.
Like, yeah, there might be out there in the millions of people in the United States.
Right.
There's probably some wacko that would think it was funny to, like, put a razor blade in an apple, or, like, put poison in candy or something like that. Now, the fact that that hasn't really, I mean, even though we've had, like, 30, 40 years of, like, urban legends about that shit, the fact that we haven't really had that happen to any great extent.
Yeah.
Maybe that's encouraging about the human race. I'm not really sure. But it's like, really, there's not any cases of that happening. The only really, like, compelling case of that happening, it was like a dad trying to poison his own fucking kids and using that urban legend as a backdrop.
Yeah, that whole MO only works in the era of television, because that's what was propagating that legend. Now that television is on its way out, you know what I mean, being replaced by the internet, you won't see that again.
Although you still do see urban legends passing around. It's just that they pass around by different means.
It's different things, though. I can remember when I was a kid, they were worried about the poison in the damn... When I was trick-or-treating as a little kid, people were still kind of worried about that.
Yeah, they tell you, bring your candy to the hospital, we'll x-ray it. I think they still do that,
we still ate that shit.
I did,
because
too.
I
don't care, it's candy.
We trick-or-treated only around our local area, you know, like 2 or 3 blocks. So it's not like we were going anywhere. You know, we weren't going far away.
You were there, like, you knew most of the people.
You knew those
or
people,
you at least, like, saw them every day.
Those people wouldn't fucking poison the local neighborhood kids. They couldn't get away with it.
One, you couldn't get away with it. It's like, 2, if you were a serial killer. If you were a serial killer, I feel like you would be using different methods.
Yeah, because what would happen is that the kids that got poisoned, they would ask those parents, where did you trick or treat?
Right. And then they would just question everybody, and then they would home in.
They'd be able to home in on a certain block, and they would turn that block upside down. They would say,
also,
who on this block had them damn zots? Remember, or who was giving away the zots?
Yeah.
Who was giving away the bottle caps?
They would have to give away some candy that kids would actually eat.
Right. Talking about, man, I eat the fuck out of Zots. Remember those things? They had the damn plate, and then you get to the center.
It's like, let's put a bunch of razor blades in Biddo honeys. Yeah. Nobody's gonna. Well, I'd eat those, but like a lot of people.
Yeah, it was urban legends. It's harder to poison kids than you think and get away with.
Well, and another thing too is that, one, if you're gonna kill a bunch of people, that seems like a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Like, why would you buy... Like, here's the thing. You would have to, like, buy a whole shit ton of candy.
Of different kinds.
Of different kinds. And you would have to, like, either inject it with whatever poison... Like, after you obtained whatever poison you were obtaining. You would either have to inject... Or you would have to sit there and, like, meticulously, like, put a razor blade in, like, every single apple. And then you would assume that, like, the kid would actually eat the apple that had the razor blades in, which most kids won't.
And you would have to, and if you did it all from the same house, you'd get caught.
That's what I mean. You're just like asking for it. So to me, it seems like, you know, yes, I write about true crime. It's like, I know crazy shit happens all the time. People do stupid shit that doesn't make any sense, but something to this extent.
Yeah. All it would take is one kid to remember where he got that piece of candy.
And a lot of kids would.
Yeah.
Especially if it was shitty candy.
Yeah, they would be like, oh yeah, those, I got them from that old man right there on this, they get you.
I mean, and the thing about it too is that this urban legend goes back even like before candy was a big thing. It's like the urban legend used to be...
Apples.
No, the urban legend used to be that there was some like crazy old person that would like take pennies, because remember they used to give you pennies, and they would heat them up on a skillet.
Yeah.
And then they would give them to the kids who would burn them. So it wouldn't kill them or anything,
right.
but it's like, that's where...
But he can pick them up fine.
I guess.
Give them to the kids.
Or he just like dumps them in the skillet.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Take
Ow!
Yeah,
that's
bullshit.
what I mean. That's what kind of
How do you get away with that?
Exactly.
You burn me, you old man.
Exactly.
Call the cops.
So the fact that the urban legend started with that...
Yeah.
Because the second you think about it, it's like, how would that even have worked?
The one I remember from a little kid is a razor blade and an apple.
Yeah, everybody.
And no one ever gave me an apple.
I never got an apple ever.
Yeah, that's all bullshit.
I had like maybe a couple times. I got pennies from people, but they were usually like in a little, you know, those little things that the
rolls.
the little rolls, the little paper rolls.
Yeah.
I used to get pennies in those like every now and then, and like you'd be like lame.
Yeah.
Because it was like 10 cents. Like, what the fuck can I get with that?
Yeah, you couldn't buy anything with that.
And even in the 80s, you couldn't get anything with that. So, you know, you'd remember, like, the old person that gave you that.
Yeah.
I never
They're
got
trying
apples.
to empty out the damn change
They
jar.
were.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not buying any candy. Fuck you kids.
Yeah.
I remember getting maybe 1 or 2 popcorn balls that people had made.
Yeah.
But I never ate them because my parents were like, well, you know,
you don't know where that came from.
You probably shouldn't eat anything that's homemade.
Right.
It's like, it's probably fine, but, you know.
Did they wash their hands? Or these
That's what I mean. Just to be on the safe side. It's like, I don't even think it was poison. It's just it might have like cat poop on it or something.
I started fucking trick-or-treating in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I don't remember getting anything homemade even by the 70s. Everybody knew.
That's what I mean. I got maybe 1 or 2 popcorn balls my whole entire childhood.
Yeah.
And that was weird even then. People be like, what the fuck is this all? Where are the Snickers?
No, in California or in Mississippi when I was a kid, it was always store-bought candy.
Yeah,
same. So you could identify what it was.
That's what I mean. Like, the couple times I got a popcorn ball or pennies or something like that, everyone would talk about that house, like, what the fuck is wrong with that person? Yeah. It was always, like, an old person.
Yeah.
Like, most normal people, they just gave you, like, either chocolate candy or, like, just the cheap-ass, like, sweet tarts or bottle
and back in the
caps or whatever.
70s, an old person might do it because they thought that was better than the store-bought
That's
candy.
what I'm saying. And I feel like that's where they were
coming. It probably was.
That's where they were coming
But
from.
could you trust them? You didn't know if their kitchen was clean, see?
Right, that's what I mean. They might have been a hoarder.
Yeah.
They might have had, it might have been like on the hoarder show where they had, like, poop in the thing and, like, rats were crawling all over their shit. They
were probably fine.
Probably.
But you just didn't...
Like I said, the couple times I got popcorn balls, my parents said that too. They were just kind of like, it's probably fine.
But don't eat that.
Just don't eat that. It's like, if you want a popcorn ball, I'll make you one.
Right,
You know what I mean? So it was kind of like that. Most people did give you normal candy. Either like little bitty candy bars or lollipops or Tootsie Rolls or something like that.
I remember getting lots of sweet tarts in a little bitty sweet tarts in a little bitty bags.
And the bottle caps, there were like 3 of them in one paper.
And a lot of little Zots. Remember the Zots?
I remember Zots.
And then like lots of those little fucking the little rolls. They were like little sweet tarts, but they were like little Necco wafers. But
I know what you're talking about.
What were those things called?
Yeah, what the fuck were those?
They were little bitty things.
Yeah, they were little. I don't remember what they were
called. Just like a tube of them.
Yeah. I got a lot of those.
Sweeties.
Too. Yeah.
Sweeties, I think is what they were called. Lots of those.
Those are pretty good. I actually like those better than sweet tarts.
I like them.
I'm not a fan of like either, but if I had to pick. Yeah. However, the bottle caps, like I said, they would give you like the packs, and it's like there was 3 of them, like in a paper, envelope or whatever. And it's like.
I was
me and my brother.
Root beer ones.
Yeah, those are the only good ones.
Yeah, root beer. I liked them all. I ate them all, but I like the root beer.
No, the root beer ones are the only good ones. I thought. Like I would pick through and like open all the things, and then like me and my brother would dump them all into one bowl.
Oh, you know what else? The little boxes of jujubes.
That's right. Yeah.
Little boxes of jujubes. They were little tiny. They were like a juju fruit, but they were harder.
Yeah.
They could fucking pull your teeth out if you weren't.
Yeah.
Jujubes.
Also the dum-dums.
Dum-dums. Little boxes.
We got a lot of those.
Little boxes of Boston baked beans.
Yep.
Those, yeah.
Yep.
That's all old school candy, I think.
Well, in the 70s and early 80s, that was kind of like the accepted candy that you gave people was just like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
It's like, if you went, because every now and then, if I had a ride,
Yeah.
I would go, because I grew up kind of poor.
Yeah.
So we would kind of like sneak over to the richer neighborhood in our
Yeah.
little costumes and pretend that we were from that neighborhood so we would get the good shit.
They do that to us to here.
Well, I don't blame them. I
Yeah,
used to do that too
yeah.
when I was a kid.
Yeah.
It's like, look, it's like,
I'm like, you don't live here.
the neighborhood where they live, they probably
Yeah.
got shitty candy.
Yeah, I give it to
They
them
want
anyway.
free. They want good free
I
candy.
give it to them anyway.
That's what I mean. I don't blame them.
You know
So
what
it's
else
like we would go to the rich people's neighborhood and they'd give like whole
Yeah.
Snickers bars. I'm
Yeah.
like, holy shit!
You know what else we used to get a lot of?
What's
Those damn butterscotch.
Oh, I love those.
And they
though.
were all
Yeah,
wrapped. The individually
Yeah.
wrapped butterscotch candies. You used to get lots of those.
Those and like, what are those fucking things that are like, they're like rectangular and they're like, oh, they're kind of peanut buttery, but they have like that hard white shit on the outside and like.
Abba-Zaba.
No, it's not an Abba-Zaba.
Oh, okay.
I know what that is, but it's like they're about that big, like if you can see, and then they're wrapped up in the thing.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
clear,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
have
yeah,
like
yeah,
brown
yeah.
stripes.
Yeah, yeah.
What are those called?
Talking about Mary Jane.
No, it's not a Mary Jane. I know what that is.
Okay.
I don't remember what the name of it was.
I forgot that.
They were good,
Yeah.
but they were like crunchy and they were like kind of peanut buttery, but not exactly. And then they had like the white hard thing on the
It's been
outside.
a long time. That's old school.
We used to get a lot of those.
And you get a lot of Tootsie
I
Rolls.
like those though. Now Tootsie
Lots of
Rolls
Tootsie
can
Rolls.
suck it. I don't like Tootsie
I used to
Rolls.
get lots of those.
I don't like Tootsie Rolls.
They were long and skinny back
I
in
know.
those days.
Now I have to say though, the flavored Tootsie Rolls, the vanilla ones,
Yeah, they're good.
Those kick ass.
Yeah.
But like the original,
chocolate? Yeah. We
Yeah.
had them.
are
They were-
they even chocolate? No. Are they?
It's fudge.
Bullshit. It's not.
It's supposed to be fudge.
It's supposed to be.
supposed to be
I
fudge.
feel like maybe it's not
Yeah,
though.
it's fudge.
What? I don't know what it is, but it's
Don't
not
worry
fudge.
about it. Just eat them.
I don't like
But
them.
I like the flavored ones
I
too.
don't
The
like
red
them.
ones and the white
The
ones.
flavored ones
Yeah.
are good.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't have those when I was a kid.
No, they didn't either. I thought like they came about later.
The
There
ones
was there was another company that made ones like that.
Yeah.
That had like a shiny like a foil wrapper.
Yeah.
That were like Tootsie Rolls, but they were flavored like the modern
Yeah.
flavored Tootsie Rolls. They had vanilla and strawberry and orange and all that kind of shit. And they tasted about the same. But I feel like Tootsie Rolls got in on that action because everyone was like, Tootsie Rolls are super gross because they are. But
Tootsie Rolls are not gross.
yes, they are.
No, you're going down. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
I'm not going to.
Okay, now I'm gonna rest my case after I say this, but you know how they make those fucking cakes that look like a kitty litter box?
A cake that looks like a kitty litter box.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
There's a cake that you make that looks like a litter box.
I am. No. What are you talking about?
There
What
is.
color? What color are we talking about?
It's a cake. And like, look, you make a cake, and then on the top of it, you make like a topping that looks like litter, like sand.
What color is it?
Well, it looks like a litter box. It's a chocolate cake underneath. Well, you can make any kind of cake you want underneath, but it's like a chocolate cake underneath. On the top, you make like a topping that looks like litter or like sand or whatever, and then for the poop, you use Tootsie Rolls
I ain't talking about this.
that are a little bit melted.
No. I've never seen it.
It's true.
That's some
I'm
shit-
I'm
that-
telling you.
That's some
I
shit.
have been to so many Halloween parties that had that.
That's some shit that came from your fucked up neighborhood. We would never do anything like that. What are you talking about?
Look on Instagram.
I don't even want to talk about this.
Look on Instagram. Kitty litter cake.
No.
It's a thing.
No.
It's a thing. He doesn't believe me.
No.
It's a
Closest,
thing.
no. Remember those ice cream bars that were white? They had all the little white chips in the little strawberry. They were like white and strawberry, and on the outside of it, they had like white little chips with little red ones in there too. And then you remember that? You remember that one?
An ice cream bar?
Yeah, it was like it was vanilla and strawberry.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, this was back in the 70s.
I can't believe you don't know what a kitty litter cake
I don't want
is.
to talk about that. But
I can't.
what else is new? What else is new? We got to get the show going. We gotta
What?
Get the show. We got to get the show.
I'm just telling you. I was gonna
Is
do
it-
like a couple more like horror movie recommendations.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that.
You wanna do that?
Okay.
You gonna die? You gonna die, or are you gonna be all right? It's almost midnight.
Yeah, maybe we can do it tomorrow. Go ahead, do them.
Hello, Pokey. Little cookie, what you doing? I can see your little belly. Look, Beijing went over there and sat on her little throne. She is not impressed with baby Cookie's rolling abilities. Cookie's like, well, I'm gonna go get on this one then. Yeah? Are you eating her catnip? Probably. Hey. Okay, we're going round and round. Going round. Uh-oh. 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 Confrontation. Confrontation. What's up? What's up? Okay. Beijing is asserting her dominance